nice. Right at 6:30. Everyone ready? All right. Because we have such a full agenda, let's go ahead and bring this meeting to order. It's 6:30. It's December 14th, the Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Welcome, everyone. Let's have a roll call to start. Let's start with Teresa.
Jimenez, present.
Boligoff, present.
Lynn's present.
Fryer, present.
Covino, present.
Wonderful. And Renee is out today. And do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I make a motion.
Second.
Okay. Any changes or additions?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The only one little change is that discussion and preparation for upcoming events should be
Just discussion, huh?
discussion, post-mortem
Okay.
discussion.
Sounds good. 'Cause that has happened. All right. Do I have a motion to accept with changes?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes with the changes.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And do I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 9th?
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Great. Any comments? Thank you, Tricia. Any comments? Fine? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, citizen communications. We don't have any citizens present today. Did anyone have anything that they would like to bring up at the meeting at this point for citizen communications?
Well, we did have the one email, I think, from Anya Miller. Was that going to be discussed here?
We can. Would you like to do that under subcommittee?
Okay,
Maybe.
sure.
Yeah, because she attended the program subcommittee and had
Correct.
some feedback, so we can talk about
Yes.
it in that context. That sounds good.
Okay.
So we have a full agenda tonight, so I thought that we would just kind of get right into it and really try to stay focused and on task so that we can get through it all in reasonable time. I know that we're good at that as a commission, this group. So let's go ahead and start with the memorial plaque policy draft. So we spoke about this last meeting, and Noreen and staff put together the actual document for us to look at. Noreen, do you want to give us intro?
Sure. So our last meeting, we kind of started the process of establishing a memorial plaque policy. And what I did was I kind of took the 3 drafts that I had provided you at the last meeting and used your input from the last meeting to kind of piecemeal together a draft policy, which was included in your packet. So it's kind of just my best attempt, but we can totally finesse the wording and pull things out and edit and delete as you see fit. And if I missed anything, my apologies in advance, but I tried to do my best based on the feedback that I received from the commission from our last meeting. At this point, I think it might be best to kind of go through section by section, and if there's any amendments we want to make, we can do that. And then also talk about, one thing I didn't include in here because I thought it maybe warranted some additional discussion was the idea of accommodating low-income options. And I know that was part of the Berkeley policy, and I brought the wording back. If we want to revisit that, we can. But I thought, thinking about the policy itself in its current draft, I'm not sure how well that would fit in. And so I'm thinking we might need to change things if that's something we want to, the commission decides we want to incorporate. I thought we could talk about that a little bit more, and then kind of what the next steps are. So.
Also, just out of curiosity, could that be something, I know that this refers to the fee schedule for the actual fees. Could perhaps that be part of the fee schedule, something?
Yes.
A kind of a tiered
Yes.
fee?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And what's in here now as a proposed fee can be adjusted as well.
Okay.
Through the chair, I have a question about the fee, it being $1,000, the fact that it includes the bench, the plaque, and maintenance. What is the cost of the bench? I think we might have, but I couldn't recall.
So the research that I've done on benches, it looks like the majority of them, based on the aesthetics of Brisbane and what we would look to purchase in terms of quality bench, most of them are about $750,
Okay.
including the plaque.
So that's including the
Yes.
plaque. And
Yes.
then installation and
It's my best estimate as to,
So are we just kind of breaking even then? It seems like,
yes, with that number, yes.
okay,
So it's totally up for discussion.
all right.
Well, we are actually doing more than breaking even. There's not leftover money that's going into the pot or whatever.
Correct.
But the city is getting a nice new bench
Right.
which is in addition to the community. And so I think that's a good balance, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
I was just, after another subcommittee meeting and talking about staff time, I was just really wanting to see like an accurate accounting of how much something like that costs versus an estimate.
And I like that, I think one of the problems that I saw in some of the drafts were that this fee was just written in and then that was it. And this says that once a year, if I remember correctly, once a year that would be reviewed and that price would change. And that takes into account that if 5 years from now it actually costs $1,200 for a bench, that the city's not being, so that, I like that, seeing that mechanism in
Yep.
place.
I like that too. Okay, should we just go through one section at a time? Okay, sounds good. Should we go ahead and read these? You want to?
Do you want me to?
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. So the first is the purpose. The purpose of this policy is to outline the terms and conditions of a commemoration on a memorial bench or plaque. The City of Brisbane, through its Parks and Recreation Department, administers a municipal memorial bench and plaque program. This program allows for private commemorations on memorial benches positioned on city-owned property. Benches should contribute to the Brisbane experience and preserve the character of the city.
I think it sounds great.
Especially like the last sentence. I think that's excellent.
Yes.
An experience, character of the city is important.
So my questions are the following. Is it a bench or a plaque or both? Right, so the way it reads, the or piece leads me to believe I can get a plaque, but where the plaque goes, I don't know, or I get a bench with no plaque, nothing on it but a bench. Right, so that's not the intent. The intent is to get a bench that has a plaque that commemorates the bench to a person, right?
The first sentence maybe could read on a memorial.
Well, so it's the first sentence, and throughout the document, it kind of goes back and forth. Again, to me, that's the entity is the two things together. It's a bench with a plaque that commemorates a person, and those two things are what it is. It goes together.
Okay,
So we can look at each paragraph, but I kind of see that we need to make sure we don't lose sight of that. That's what it is.
yes.
That's the way again, my interpretation of it.
Yeah, I think we need to take or out. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think my brain just skipped right over that.
Well, and brains do that. We see words we don't want to see, and we see words that aren't really there sometimes. So.
We can say and
Good
plaque
catch.
or with plaque.
Well, it's just like the second paragraph, or sorry, second sentence, where it talks about a memorial bench and plaque program. So there it is, really saying two things together. So the program talking about a bench, memorialized bench with a commemorative plaque.
Have a memorial bench with plaque, perhaps.
Yes.
I think clarifying whether or not this policy is just going to speak to memorial benches that are inclusive of plaques, or if we're talking about that in addition to plaques on rocks or however else we want to envision plaques for the future throughout the city.
Right.
So I think that we have to make that distinction, that decision, whether or not we want this policy to be inclusive of all of that or just exclusively benches.
Agreed, and that's what I recall from last time. Because again, the idea of creating a plaque by itself is a good thing to be placed on something like a rock on the city property, right? There would certain boulders in a park, something like that. You want to put a plaque on there. That's one thing, and then or there's the idea of putting a bench, not having any plaque on it, but someone has donated the bench. There may be a small little annotation of the person who donated the bench and honor someone, but not necessarily a plaque, or the fact of a full-on plaque that says this bench is in memory of whomever. So there's three potential possibilities for it that I see that we've talked about. So again, keeping that in mind, it can be the or if we want it to be that way. In my mind, I see that the three make good choices, that you give people options, because some people want to have a bench but not necessarily be recognized for it, kind of anonymous, that, someone knows it's that person's bench, but not, does it say glaringly? And some people want to see their name and says, this bench is honor of X person. Or the idea of being able to honor a rock or some other thing that they might want to.
It seems to me, through the chair, sorry, that allowing for the rocks and such, I'm thinking of, for instance, the Schwenderloff rock that's at the park. And it's a sizable rock with a sizable plaque on it. And it just seems to me that this is getting very complicated, that if we start allowing rocks, because that's a rather large plaque, and I'm sure it cost a good amount of money. So a bench with a very specific small plaque is one thing. If we're opening it up to lots of different styles of memorials, it seems like it's going to get kind of complicated.
I guess that's the question. Do we have separate policies for memorial benches and plaques, or do we try to combine them?
Through the chair, I kind of agree with you. And this is, it says on the top, memorial bench and plaque policy,
Right.
period. Do we want to make it broader than that? Or do we just keep it focused on that and leave the other potential places that people might want to memorialize something for another day or for a case-by-case basis or something like that? Because it could get muddy pretty quick. What do you think?
I'm in agreement. I just wanted to bring up
Yes.
the sides of things, so we talked them through. Again, in the context of this, really, I'm with you in the fact that it should talk about memorial benches and plaques. And then if we wanted to consider something else, look at a different policy. But this should be very specific to the memorial bench and a plaque and the policy around those things, those two items together as a unit.
Bonnie, what do you think?
I feel the same way, too. I think if it were a plaque on a rock, that would be an individual thing that we would have to consider. But otherwise, I think the bench with the plaque makes sense.
Okay, good. I think we all agree, because I agree as
And-
well. Maybe-
And I think maybe having something like a rock would be something that whoever is doing it, has their own design and is just more or less looking for a place to place it, as opposed to us providing the rock and us ordering the plaque. And I mean, it just, because it's kind of almost like a piece of public art that it might need to be approved and then okayed for a specific place.
Perhaps more on a case-by-case basis.
Yes, yeah.
I think so, too. Okay, so we're in agreement that we will just focus on memorial benches with plaques affixed or not. I guess that's option 2. Okay, so that sounds good. Do we need to change the
So the first sentence needs to be changed then. It's memorial plaque and
memorial bench?
Memorial
and
bench
plaque?
with plaque.
With
Yes.
plaque? With plaque,
Yeah.
sounds good. And then we're fine with it staying memorial bench and plaque policy at the top?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so anything else that needs to be changed in that one? Next sentence is fine. Okay, that seems good. Any other comments on purpose? Otherwise, looks good. Okay, great. Move on to criteria.
So criteria states an honoree for a memorial bench must be deceased prior to application. Only individuals may be honored with a memorial bench. Organizations and groups will not be considered.
Looks good to me.
Me as well.
There's a graceful way to say that.
All right.
Okay.
Number 3, application. An application must be completed to submit a formal request for a commemorative bench and plaque. We can change that, commemorative bench with plaque. The Parks and Recreation Department will review applications and maintains the authority to deny those that it deems inappropriate and/or that would attract vandalism. Decisions to deny an application may be appealed to the Parks and Recreation Commission. Memorial bench program applications will be reviewed throughout the year and processed in the order in which they are received. Lead time may vary. The application is attached to this policy and available online.
Through the chair, I did, and I have this underlined another place in here, the would attract vandalism. So what's the situation that is looking to cover?
Yeah, I
Y-
had the
A
same
placement, a
question.
placement of a bench that would attract vandalism.
Reading that, I wasn't sure if it was because it was going to be in a spot that would attract vandalism, or if it was because the person being honored would attract vandalism.
Right, exactly. Someone doesn't like that
Or the
person.
proposed language on the plaque.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's obviously taken from another policy from
Right.
another city. But I just kind of,
I think we.
I was
can
trying to
just-
understand what that is, what that's,
I would kind of like to put a period after inappropriate and line out the rest of it.
Okay.
My own personal.
yeah, I think that's maybe a better way. It still gives the Parks and Rec Department the authority to write back and say,
The wording.
this language is perhaps not appropriate, a period, and leave the whole vandalism thing out of it.
Let's not plant seeds.
Yes,
So get rid of the vandalism.
yeah.
That it
Okay.
deems an inappropriate period. Okay, that
Okay.
sounds good. Okay. All right, number 4.
Moving on to fees, the fee for memorial benches is established each year by the master fee schedule. The memorial bench commemoration fee is $1,000. This is the price for a single commemorative plaque on a memorial bench. The amount covers the cost of the bench, plaque, and installation by the city. Complete payments must be received in order to initiate the purchasing process.
Sounds very clear to me.
Sounds good. Anyone?
Yeah, I'd like that.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
Number 5.
Benches. The Parks and Recreation Department will select a bench style in keeping with the general aesthetics of the city and will complement potential placement areas. To the extent possible, and in order to maintain a consistent look and feel throughout the city, all commemorative benches will be identical.
There's only one typo, the word complement. It's PLE.
Thank you.
Sure. Otherwise,
Looks good to me.
yes.
Anything else on that one? Looks good. Okay, 6.
Plaque and text. The city will procure and install a small plaque on a memorial bench to honor the individual or individuals being memorialized. The plaque size, font, and design specifications, as well as approval of the message, will be at the discretion of the Parks and Recreation Department. The purchaser will agree on the text content, and both parties will sign off on the final proof before the order is submitted. The plaque will be securely inset or surface mounted onto the seat back of the bench. The city shall be responsible for the bench installation.
So my question is, how many individuals before it becomes a group? Right, so up and above, we talked about the criteria. It said only individuals may be honored with a bench. So is individuals 2, 3, 4? When does too many individuals become, quote, a group then? If it's 4 or more, I don't know. It's a fine line. Ideally, when we think individuals, sometimes we think a husband and wife, 2 partners, whatever it might be. But if you had, family members, you put 3 or 4, does that make it a group? I don't know. Just being very cautious of it, because if you allow people the liberty to take, they'll take the liberty. So I'm just being very careful. We need to make sure we define what individuals mean. Say less than 4 people? I don't know if that's a criteria or not. So just some thoughts.
And are we talking about these 4 people on one plaque or a little plaque for each individual on the bench? And does that change cost?
So I would see it as a single plaque with so much. I mean, again,
Right,
so much
however,
space. Yeah, but
correct.
again, whatever that number of individuals might be.
Well, then maybe the limit is whatever fits on the little plaque.
I interpreted the group earlier in this thing, the exclusion of groups, as is talking about groups, Mothers of Brisbane or
Right.
something like that, as opposed to individuals, and putting a limit of 4 or something on individuals. We talk about families. Suppose something tragic happened to a family, and that was much beloved here in Brisbane, and then they wanted to put a bench to commemorate them and so on, and whatever the size and shape of that family is shouldn't be limited by language at this point. So I see the group as not coming into play when we're talking about a number of individuals as opposed to a group like an organization or something like that. Is that,
Maybe it
I
should
agree,
be
I just want-
specified that it can be an individual or a family as a group, as opposed to just a group of friends, say,
So I don't know that we have to change any wording. I just want to bring it up as a point that we may have to consider down the road, that again, if it comes up. I think the wording is self-explanatory. Again, I'm being the other side of things, thinking about how people might take it a little further. I'm okay with the wording because like Kevin said, people indicate groups. You have an idea what that means versus a group of individuals who are a family or something like that, 5, 6 people in a family, maybe more. That's okay. That would be the individual. So just want to
yeah.
put it food for thought. I didn't want to say
Yeah,
change anything.
I appreciate your perspective there.
Yeah, and I think that's a good,
detail.
it's good to think all those things through. But I think if we leave the language the way it is, and if something came up that we didn't anticipate, it could be denied under 3 application, the authority to deny those it deems inappropriate. And so if you had some really goofy thing
Yes.
that somebody was really trying to push the notion of what we're trying to do here, that would be the catch for that.
And Noreen, are we going to go for a consistent size of the plaques on the benches? So the space is limited
Yes.
to, and I don't know if we have a dimension, but,
We won't until we select a specific bench, but I think most of them are limited to about 4 to 5 lines of concise text.
okay. Because that will also limit what the possibilities are.
Correct.
And can be brought up at the time, too. Okay. All right, any change on
Perhaps
that?
maybe we should specify that it's for individuals, families, or, partners, or however that wants to be said.
I wouldn't even go that far. What if it
No?
was a tragedy and the tragedy involved?
A group of people?
Yeah, I mean, this is a real morbid thing to
Oh.
sort of,
have to
think
stop.
But
through.
it could be.
But if we say family, well, what if?
Gotcha.
What if, yeah, and if something comes in that's really off the wall, we're covered under the
Good
third
point.
article.
Yeah.
The only change that would make is in the criteria where it has individuals, make it individual or individuals, the same way you did down in the plaque and text with the apostrophe, or sorry, the parentheses around the S. Because it could be a single person or it could be persons. Right?
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good. All right, so let's move on to the next one.
Placement. This policy permits commemorative benches on city-owned property, and the city reserves the right to determine individual bench placement. Bench locations may include but are not limited to the following areas: the Brisbane Marina Green, Brisbane Parks, Brisbane Trails, the Brisbane Lagoon, San Bruno Mountain, communal gathering areas. Placement determination will be made by the Parks and Recreation Department in conjunction with the Brisbane Public Works Department. Locations outside of those listed above may be allowed on a case-by-case basis, subject to review by city staff. The city reserves the right to relocate a bench if unforeseen circumstances arise due to its location, for example, recurrent vandalism, park renovation, etc.
So the city could possibly be open to recommendations from the person purchasing as to where they would like to see it, but they won't necessarily get their first choice depending on what space is available. Okay.
And this is really all contingent upon Public Works,
True.
because they'll be maintaining those areas and maintaining the benches. And
That's true.
so, once we have a draft, it's my plan to work with Public Works and the Marina team to kind of specify specific areas and locations for placement.
Oh, okay.
So this is kind of just a general guide.
Oh, I see. So if someone comes into you and wants to talk about it, then they could see some locations. And
Sure.
that could be part of the
Exactly.
discussion. Okay, that
Yep.
sounds good. Anyone else have anything on placement?
Yeah, I'm not just, I'm quite not clear on this, whether this, the way it's written, allows for input from the person requesting a commemorative bench, or they just request it and it goes wherever the city decides it goes, versus somebody who really wants it out at the marina because that had some special meaning to the person they're trying to commemorate.
It might be that we include a space on the application for preferred location, and maybe that's where they could indicate their preference.
And with enough room maybe even for an explanation of why, because this is a memorial thing. Somebody's going to do this. This person was particularly fond of hiking the Crocker Trail, so they want one out on Crocker Trail. There should be some place where that input can.
We can add some language to this area if we want to do that.
That sounds good.
I like that, Kevin.
Okay, anything else on placement? Maintenance and term.
Benches in outdoor settings have a reasonable lifespan of approximately 10 years. The city will provide for normal maintenance and repair of the bench during its useful life. If bench removal is required due to deterioration or vandalism, the city is not responsible for replacement of the bench. The bench and plaque remain the property of the city. The donation term for a bench is 10 years or the useful life of a bench, whichever comes first. If the purchaser so chooses, an additional 10-year term can be purchased at the conclusion of the first 10 years. Otherwise, at the end of the donation term, the plaque will be removed to allow for other donations and/or bench replacement. The purchaser may request to have the plaque returned to them and must submit their formal request to the Parks and Recreation Department in writing. City staff will do their best to return the plaque to the purchaser at the expiration of the term. This policy only applies to new benches and plaques installed after January 1st, 2017. Existing commemorative plaques will be grandfathered and remain in place for the foreseeable future.
I see a contradiction here. Earlier in another area, and I don't recall where, you said that that a bench would be moved by staff if it was deemed there was a problem with vandalism. And here it says if a bench removal is required due to deterioration or vandalism, the city is not responsible. So I can see due to deterioration because that's the life of the bench, but vandalism, it states earlier that you would move it to another place if there was vandalism.
So under placement, the last sentence on placement, the city reserves the right to relocate a bench if unforeseen circumstances arise to its location. And then an example was,
Recurrent vandalism,
Yeah.
yes, thank you. So those two just kind of contradict.
Yeah. We can take whichever approach the commission prefers.
Yeah, through the chair, I did also underline this vandalism thing because I was sort of fascinated by it. And it does seem a little unfair or punitive if, for no apparent reason, this memorial thing is vandalized in its second year, and then that's it, you're just out of luck.
Right.
That seemed a little, I mean, I don't know, so the city then pay for a new one, or I don't know how that's handled, but how does the city handle other properties that are vandalized? That just seemed a little strange.
Yeah.
Let's say it's just malicious vandalism with no rhyme or reason, or even malicious vandalism with malicious intent. Is that really fair to the person, to the family?
It could happen the first year it's there.
Yeah, and
Instead of 10 years, the first year.
yeah, I do understand the idea that repeated vandalism, that the city goes, okay, this is in a dark corner of the city where if we put it here under bright lights, it'll stop happening. That I can see that clause in it, but the vandalism thing seemed a little.
Yeah, I liked the sentence under placement.
Yeah.
That we would move, perhaps move it to another location with recurrent vandalism. I think the vandalism should be taken out of the maintenance and term. For deterioration, I think that's life of, but I don't like the fact that the purchaser is held responsible and loses their $1,000 if it's vandalized once or twice in the first couple of years. So I personally would like to see that removed.
The vandalism.
Yeah, under maintenance.
I feel
and term.
comfortable with removing that.
Removing the third
Maintenance and
sentence.
term. Just you're saying, Teresa, just the vandalism part?
Right, where the sentence would read, if bench removal is required due to deterioration, the city is responsible for replacement of, the city is not responsible for replacement of the bench. I don't think we
You
should,
want to remove that sentence?
no, I think we should just take or vandalism out. And I think we should defer to what it says in the paragraph above under placement, that if there is repeated vandalism, the city will take it upon themselves to move the bench to another location.
Okay.
I agree. Okay, good. Anything else on maintenance?
Yeah, I did
Okay.
have one other thing underlined here, and this is in the next paragraph. Otherwise, at the end of the donation term, the plaque will be removed to allow for another donation and/or bench replacement. I guess that makes sense. I guess when I read it, I thought, does that mean that the term is up and you take the plaque off and slap another one on it?
So
But that's not really what we're
That's what
talking
it
about
sounds
here.
like.
that's what Berkeley does for the low-income plaques, is that they, once a term is up for, a 10-year term is up for an existing bench, they remove the plaque, then give it back to the purchaser. Then they use that same bench with a new plaque for those that are
But isn't
low-income.
isn't the shelf life of these benches about 10 years?
Right.
So when the time's up,
Would seem like it needs a new bench.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But
I
if
don't,
it doesn't,
huh?
but if it doesn't,
I think some of the benches in town have been around a lot longer than 10 years.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see.
The ones in the park, how long have they been there? The ones in the park, how long have they been there?
I don't
Since
know the,
beginning of time almost.
I think an awfully long time, yeah.
Yeah. And that's like 30 years.
Okay, so the donation term, it says in the second paragraph, is 10 years or the useful life of the bench. So if it doesn't last 10 years, then that is the term.
And if it lasts 12 years, then that's the term, the way that reads.
No,
Except
it says
for...
10 years or,
Or,
Well-
or 10 years, or the useful life of
Right,
the bench.
you're
So if
right.
the useful life of the
Or.
bench is 15 years, then
Yeah, it would seem
Yeah,
that
That's
way.
in
Right.
contradiction to, otherwise at the end of the term, the plaque will be removed. So the
Exactly.
question is, do we leave the plaque on for as long as the bench lasts, or do we take it off after 10 years?
how about 10 years or the useful life of the bench, or whichever comes first?
That's what it says.
states right
Oh,
now.
it does, then it's okay.
Oh, did I miss that, whatever?
Yeah, the second sentence
It says that.
says that.
Oh,
The donation term for a bench is 10 years or the useful life of a bench, whichever comes first.
Okay, then that
So
covers
if a bench lasts 15 years, great. It's one term for 10 years, and the next person gets half a term on one bench, potentially. I mean, right? So,
it gets a little goofy.
no, I mean, the wording is the and/or helps us, because the way I see it is, again, ideally, materials nowadays don't last 10 years. Some, the older they do, depending on material. The type of bench chosen, the material chosen, it may last longer than 10 years, right? If it lasts a 20-year bench, it's going to be used twice to have two plaques, right? 10 years will be one plaque, the next 10 years will be a different plaque on that bench. Or if the bench only lasts 10 years, the plaque and the bench get removed and a new bench is put down with a new plaque. So got both choices depending on what we choose as a plaque.
But when we ask somebody for $1,000, that price is based on the cost of a bench, a plaque, and installation.
And maintenance.
And maintenance. So now we have a bench and it's going to last for 15 years. At the end of 10 years, we take somebody's $1,000 and we slap a new plaque on that bench, which doesn't really cost $1,000.
Well, I still think there's sorry.
And they're also then under that thing of which, whichever comes first, the life of the bench. The life craps out after 5 years and then they're done. I mean, it is a little, yeah.
I'm just thinking it's being maintained for 10 years. It's got this policy that we're going to fix it if it gets destroyed, we're going to move it. I think having it just the price set at $1,000 kind of covers everything that might happen. And whereas maybe somebody's plaque rolls into a bench that's already been in use but needs replacement 5 years down the line, it's just kind of an ongoing, this is the price, and it kind of takes care of everything over the long haul. rather than actually being very specific about 700 for the bench and this much for the plaque. Because I think the staff time in taking care of it over 10 years is going to be far in excess of the $1,000 anyway.
And the other way I look at this is it's hard to determine an ROI on this, right? So a person's doing a bench for altruistic reasons. There's not a return on investment like you would look at this from a ROI perspective. How I give $1,000, it's for 10 years, that's $100 a year. This bench is costing me. Do I get my money back from the use of that bench? I don't think that's how people are going to look at this. Again, it's altruistic. They're doing it out of love and compassion. The price is there for realistic. We have to handle a cost because it's going to take cost for products and materials and people. But ultimately, I don't think the price tag from that perspective is what's hanging over someone. To your point, I understand. You feel like if I had a bench for 5 years and it cost me $1,000, that's a lot more than someone who got it for 10 years. But I'm not sure that a person may be weighing that. I could be wrong, but from a compassion perspective, I'm not weighing that return on investment. It's just my thoughts.
So do you all feel that the term should be 10 years and that after that time, the plaque comes off? Or do you feel that the plaque and the bench should be there for commemoration for the life of the bench? The question is, I guess, do you take that plaque off and then you'd have to figure out another kind of set of policies for that's kind of a lesser, I don't know, I hate to say that, but it'd be a lower cost perhaps memorial than to go with an existing bench. Do we do something like that? Do we look at that option like I think Berkeley had? Or do we just have it be as long as this bench lasts?
That's what I was thinking, instead of 10 years, the life of the bench. And if it's 12, so be 12.
Just the life of the bench?
Yeah.
To me, it feels a little bit, I don't know, crass to pry off somebody's name after the 10 years is up. I don't know.
I kind of wonder if our city is going to be completely littered with a million benches all over the place.
I really doubt that'll happen.
If we just put a bench there and it kind of stays forever.
Benches lining the street.
Yeah.
I doubt that.
I'm comfortable with the 10 years. I hear what you're saying, Karen, Madam Chair, in regards to prying it off. But again, the person, the honoree, family, whoever, has the option at the end of 10 years to re-up.
True.
I want that bench forever in my family, pass it down, whatever it might be. You have that option, so you don't lose it per se. Again, I think 10 years is a pretty good number. Again, depending on the materials chosen for benches and where they might be, a bench may not last 10 years, depending on the materials chosen and where it's at. Because, again, heavily fog, lots of water, who knows, could be near a tree, sap, lots of things could happen to a bench. I think 10 years is a good number to put something down there to commemorate something by. That's a decade. That's a generation, if you will, right?
Then to follow up on that idea then, if then we had a bench that has already reached its 10 years and someone wants to renew, do we ask them to pay an additional $1,000 for the next 10 years? Because $1,000 in the first 10 years covers the cost of the bench. Do we give them an opportunity to renew at a lower cost? Is it still $1,000? What do you guys think about that?
I see, because we're not paying for a new, we
But
might
not a new-
end up paying for another bench if it needs replacement,
But
but we're
maybe
not paying for a new plaque.
It would seem to me that it should be half. If it's, if you up for another 10 years, it shouldn't be another 1,000. I think it should be like 500.
So in regards to the fee for that, I wouldn't put the fee in here. It gives you an option to do it. The fee may, so 2017, this starts 2027. What's it going to cost to run the maintenance of the next 10 years? We don't know that cost yet, right?
Yeah.
We can look at inflation, things like that. I wouldn't put a fee structure. I'd give the person an opportunity. Ideally, yes, the cost would be less, but in what dollars? In $2027 or $2017?
Well, somewhere in here, I thought it mentioned fee schedule, the city fee schedule in here, but now I don't see it. Was that somewhere else?
It's, the fee schedule's right.
It's going to be
It's
attached.
it's item
4.
4.
Okay.
And it's written so that each year that fee is reviewed. And you're right, fast forward 10 years, and the fee structure might be $3,000 for a bench, and so,
It may go up, it may go down, because
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
cost in some cases may have gone down. So I wouldn't put the fees in here. I think the option to give a donor the option to say, after 10 years, you want to continue this, you have an option to do that.
Okay.
Versus saying, you get 10 years and that's it. That would be limiting, and that would be somewhat hard to swallow.
Yes.
You have 10 years and the option to have more time, if you
I
would.
guess it also depends on a number of other things, the wear and tear on the bench, the condition it's in, so maybe that needs to be more on a case-by-case basis as well as year by year. Okay.
And through the chair, I think we should go back and look at number 4, fees again,
Okay.
where it says the amount covers the cost of the bench, plaque, and installation by the city. I think perhaps maybe it should say the amount covers the cost of the bench and/or maintenance of the bench over, because that may come up. Well, it's not a new bench, you're putting it on as an existing one. Why am I being charged $1,000 for, an old bench? But I think if it's made clear that we're putting the benches in where the benches are needed, but if it's an existing bench, we're still maintaining it over 10 years.
what exactly is the maintenance of a bench?
I don't know, if it's damaged, it might need repair.
I know
if
they
it needs
painted the benches
cleaning,
that are there.
if they need to be painted or weathered with some kind of varnish or something, or oil rubbed, or moved because of the vandalism, just any unforeseen things where this bench needs. And it might not be something that is scheduled maintenance, it might just be as need arises, but still, the bench is going to need to be maintained to hopefully get the best life out of it that we can.
Didn't they paint the benches in the park? I remember that.
I believe so.
I believe they
So,
did.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're saying, Teresa, changing the wording on the amount covers the cost of the bench?
I think just somehow somewhere that it basically makes it clear that you could be getting a new or an existing bench, so that it also includes the maintenance of said bench, not necessarily just the cost of a brand-new bench.
So let's see, perhaps putting that in after the amount covers the cost of the bench.
So I guess my thought's this.
Got that.
This is new policy, new benches being placed. The idea of an old bench being replaced would be 10 years from now.
Unless we're going to put plaques on benches that are already existing? No.
No.
Okay, good.
Right? So it's all net new. So
Yes.
I hear what you're asking, but I wouldn't worry about that language now, because as time goes on, we can change it. Again, to me, this is about net new, all new benches being put in that'll have a lifetime of we hope, at least 10 years.
Good point. We'll
So.
just have to remember, or somebody will have to remember to change it down the line.
Put it on.
I think that's a
in our
good point,
calendar.
too. We're trying to foresee every eventuality, none of which will happen, and the one eventuality we don't foresee is the one that will happen, and then we
Right.
can modify the, I think that's a good point.
Okay. All right, should we move on to restrictions?
Okay.
Okay.
The placement of any mementos, for example, flowers, statues, personal belongings, etc., in the vicinity of the memorial bench is not permitted.
Perfecto.
Okay.
And then the last piece was the mock-up application. And that's open for discussion as well.
And the only thing we were going to think about adding a section that says preferred placement
Yeah.
of the bench,
Okay.
and perhaps an opportunity for them to explain why, if they want to do that.
Okay.
And then do you think that needs to have underneath it some sort of disclaimer that we will do our best to honor requests, but can't always, just so people
Sure.
are aware?
Where would you put that?
In the same box as preferred, this would be in the application.
Oh,
Make another box that would say, like, preferred preferred location.
Well, it could be there, or again, the person, again, where the acknowledgement from the applicant says that they understand the policy, and the policy talks about placement. As long as placement is clear that we have these 6 locations, that potential, that you can choose one, but again, I think the placement's saying that we'll try to accommodate you, but we won't. So by agreeing to, we're acknowledging that they've read the policy says that, yes, you can choose a location, but you may not be guaranteed it. If you want to call it out more specifically, we can. I'm just saying if the two together go, the policy has to be read, so the person signs it and says, yes, I acknowledge I read the policy that says my bench may not be placed at the location I chose. But
Right.
I would, in the placement, I would give a person 2 choices. What my primary location would be and my secondary. That helps people get a choice in that matter. I think that'd be helpful. I mean, again, until we get like Teresa was thinking about littered with benches everywhere, which I don't think is going to happen, then we might be more selective. But I think if a person gives their choices for the foreseeable future, it probably would be able to be granted.
Okay.
Just my thoughts.
And there is the section in here, except it's under plaque and text, not placement, about both parties will sign off on the proof, but I would imagine would sign off on the whole thing before anything is carried forward, so.
Okay, and so do you think, so we'll add for honorary information, preferred location, and then perhaps second
Reason, or
reason?
preferred second, and then reason under both of them, maybe.
That would be enough. Does that work for everyone? Okay. Okay, I think it looks good.
Phew.
Thank you, Noreen, for taking.
Great
the
job,
time
Noreen.
Thank you.
together.
So I think what we'll do is I will go ahead and update the policy with the feedback from tonight, and we'll bring it back to our next meeting. And in the meantime, I'm going to meet with Public Works staff and the Marina staff to talk about potential placement opportunities so that we can have a identified list of those first initial placement areas, so that they're on board and they're bought into the process as well. And then, once we feel comfortable with our draft, then we can take that to City Council for their approval.
That sounds good.
And then I can finally respond to that resident that we can move forward with their purchase.
We have policy now.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's great,
Thank you.
terrific. All right, let's move on to old business B, preparation of annual achievement and work plan for January liaison meeting. So you prepared something for us, Noreen, that includes a work plan, which I printed out. Let's see. So perhaps we can use this to, what I'll do is I'll keep some notes too, and just identify, the discussion is about identifying what we would like to highlight at the council meeting, or actually the liaison meeting is the first one.
Yes, so the commission decided that you guys wanted to invite Madison and Lori, who are our council liaisons, to come to our January meeting. They both confirmed today that they will be here for that.
Okay.
So I think the goal today is just to kind of formulate a list of achievements from the past year
Okay.
that we want to be sure to highlight for them before going to the larger city council, and then to make any modifications or updates to the work plan.
Okay, that sounds good. And then we're going to put this into some sort of a memo form, perhaps,
Yes,
for us to present to them and for us to work from
yes.
on January's meeting. All right, so should we start, unless I have these out of order, I have town connectivity first. Take a look at that. And also, feel free, if there's something that you've worked on in a subcommittee meeting, a subcommittee that is not on here, make sure that you let us know so that we can add it. Not necessarily to the work plan, or perhaps to the work plan, but also just for the list. So let's start with, should we just kind of go through it, you guys? You want to do that? Encourage more connectivity between the Ridge and Central Brisbane. Okay, the first task was develop Crocker Trail. And that is,
Through the chair, perhaps it would go, as I went through this, I looked at the complete and all the 0% things I just passed along. Unless there are some items on here that are misrepresented by that percentage of complete.
maybe what we should do is,
Yeah, we don't really need to go through any of this, or is this not currently updated?
It is updated,
So page one
unless I've missed anything.
is a zero unless,
We can, yeah, unless there's something that, for example, for Develop Crocker Trail, because it has been work on the Bike and Pedestrian Trails Master Plan, I feel that some work has been done toward that, right? Because that's kind of step
Right.
one. So I don't know if, it's not specifically Crocker, but it includes Crocker, so.
there was, at the last city council meeting, I believe there was a presentation of the Bikes and Trails Master Plan. And what was our involvement in that? Was that your,
It was.
Yes.
So
so,
I
speak.
speak. In regard, but I guess in terms of a percentage of where we were on the work plan, it is long-term. There's been a portion done where we provided input to, from our Parks and Rec Commission as a subcommittee, taking our ideas on what it should look for Parks and Rec in the community for the master plan, how it should include the trails, how it should include the pedestrian and bike pathways, and things to connect the city of Brisbane together. So that input was there. Was it a large percentage of that, the long overterm for Crocker Trail? No, but it was a small percentage into the overall master plan, which will take many years to complete. I'm comfortable with the 0% because, again, it's a small percentage. It's not enough to outline. We did have some involvement. I guess for an accomplishment in that area was the fact that we were able to get the community involvement, get the community to give feedback when the master plan went to the Thursday night's farmers market and get feedback and solicitation. So I'm glad we got that accomplished in getting the feedback from the community, but that's kind of about it that we've really done so far. I can't take a whole lot of credit for it yet.
Okay, so it's perhaps not anything percentage complete on Crocker Trail, but it is something that you as a liaison from Park and Rec have been working on
Yes,
this year.
yeah,
So
yep.
I think it should be on the list, because I think that's important, especially to show involvement in these kind of intergroup activities and planning processes. So we can add that to the list. What else on here? Anything else that anyone sees should move from 0% or anything that we have done for town connectivity that might be added? Nothing? Still need to work on that one?
We do.
Okay.
We've got work to do.
Karen, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So what is it exactly that you're going to put on the list?
I just wrote down Park and Rec liaison and in Pren's Lyle on the Bike Pedestrian Trails Master Plan.
Okay, thank you.
Perhaps Lyle can give just a little update as to, I know that they're aware of what's been going on, but just so that they're aware that Park and Rec has had involvement, I think is important. Okay, so let's move on. My next page is community space for recreation. Is that everyone's next page? Yours is in order, Bonnie. I see yours is stapled, so, okay. These are all 0 except for we have after-school program modular. So, yeah, we are in the process of working with the school district on that. I know that, I believe that Superintendent Culver had a walkthrough with city staff, taking a look at it, and I'm not sure where we are after that happened. You want to let us know?
Ronan, myself, and Andrea, the BES principal, walked through the site and kind of discussed potential opportunities for either expansion of the existing modular, replacement, addition of a second, relocation. So we've kind of started that conversation about how we want to approach the challenge going forward, and have tossed around some ideas and are working through the process of vetting some of those ideas.
Okay,
So, but we're excited the ball is rolling.
yes.
I know this modular was brought up in one of our subcommittee meetings, Lyle, the one you were at. And the person from the community who asked about it said that she was told by somebody, and I don't recall who that was, but somebody on staff, that it was already in the works. And we were saying we did not think that it was. I know it's planned.
Discussions have started.
Yeah, discussions,
Yeah.
correct? You want
Correct.
to jump in there?
No, no,
Yeah.
you're right.
Hard
There was
time
just
formulating.
miscommunication, I think, to the community member about that they thought that it was a done deal, was already moving forward versus, no, we're just in discussions.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah,
just
I mean,
being
it is and has been on the CIP list, but it's never been assigned a year for.
Yeah, and this shows that we've given it a 2-year time frame, so it's not going to happen this year. It's being worked on.
Okay, so for the list, we can say Park and Rec, Brisbane Elementary School District discussions have started. We're in a 2-year time frame. The current status of the building, when it was, I know there was some water damage, but it's fine. It'll last 2 more years, right? So we're fine with that. Okay.
And I know this community member also brought up that the main issue was that there was no restroom and that sometimes they get locked out of the school for the restrooms and this probably isn't the place to bring it up, but that's being considered as well.
Yeah, it is one of the challenges, and so we're hopeful that if we replace the modular or get a second modular, that we can purchase one that has a restroom. It would definitely help programming. But also, to mention that we're just so impacted in terms of capacity for our after-school program that it's really not adequate space for the number of children that we're serving every day. I spoke with Steve this morning, actually, and last week, it was a rainy week, and BES had parent-teacher conferences after school, and so we weren't able to use the multipurpose room cafeteria at BES that we often use on rainy days.
Yes.
And our enrollment for the after-school program, including monthly and daily, is about 84 kids.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God.
But on average, we have, 60 to 70 kids, and so to cram that many kids into the portable with staff is very difficult. And so at this point, the concern is that we're sacrificing the quality of the program to serve the quantity of the kids and families that need the program. So,
Interesting. During the walkthrough on the Brisbane Elementary campus, did it look as if, did the principal feel there was enough space for a larger modular? And what were her thoughts on that?
she's hesitant to replace the existing modular in that space with a larger modular or to add a second, just because of the impact that it will have on the kids during the school day with recess. So we talked about other potential locations for a modular, but it would be more challenging and more expensive to place the program and those modulars in a different location.
A different location on the elementary school
Correct,
campus.
property.
Interesting, okay. So we're still being challenged by space for the afternoon program. Okay.
Yeah, and
After-school
Steve and I actually are going to set up a meeting with Andrea after the holidays to talk about what other indoor space is available at BES that we could potentially use on those days where there's inclement weather and we're severely impacted and need more indoor options.
Okay. I'll make a note of that. So Noreen and Steve will meet with Andrea for additional ideas, additional rainy day ideas.
Yeah, I think they might have a
Space
classroom
ideas.
or two that isn't being utilized full-time,
Okay,
so.
I think that might be true. Okay, so anything else on, then we have conduct annual facility audits on all P&R facilities. And we have done that. And might I add that we might also, in the future, want to do a walkthrough just for kind of cleanliness and professional appearance in
Yeah.
different buildings, and that's
Absolutely.
something that in addition to just kind of looking at high level, but we also really take a look and see what the presentation is, because we are renting these spaces to the public, so I think that would be good. And then make recommendations to City Council regarding facility improvements, which we have done, and we can talk about what we are doing at Mission Blue as far as updates. We have kitchen. Now, I was in the kitchen recently, and I thought we had some new appliances. We have a new cooktop in there.
New cooktop and a new fridge.
The fridge did not look new.
It didn't look new. Did it come
It's
from
new.
somewhere else? It's
I checked
new?
it on
new.
Tuesday, and I didn't think it looked new.
Yeah, it does not look new.
It's new.
It is?
Really?
Wow.
As long as it has shelves inside,
Yes, it does.
we're on our way, we're okay. Because the
does.
old one didn't have
Surprising.
these
Kind of a
shelves left.
retro 10-year-old looking
Yeah.
Interesting,
retro
'cause-
refrigerator.
New.
Because we looked at it really carefully. We were there recently, so interesting.
And we also have new chairs for Mission Blue Center.
Yeah, I saw the
Yes, we
chair.
did see those.
Refrigerator.
And we will be replacing the carpet shortly.
Yes, and is there going to be tile work as well? 'Cause there's a
Yes.
lot of cracked and broken
Yes.
tile, and it looks filthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then next year, we budgeted for updates of the countertops and cabinets in the
Oh,
kitchen as
good.
well.
Because they look
Good.
pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Countertop and cabinets next year. That's great. Is there something else? Because we were just there, spending a lot of time in Mission Blue. Is there anything else that we noticed? So what did we decide about type of carpet? Are we going with a pattern? Has that been decided yet?
It has not been decided yet.
Okay. And then who will make that decision?
We can bring it to the commission if you guys want to see samples and.
I actually
Yeah.
would.
Okay.
And I think
Okay.
that Kevin might also have something to say about it and want to take a look
Sure.
because it does make a big difference. And I'd be interested, just like Bonnie and I looked at color swatches for the
Yeah,
community center. Right? We spent a lot of time looking at that and
exactly.
colors of
Tile
drapes
and everything.
Mhm. So, okay, so council, commission to look at carpet ideas. Okay, what else do we have on this one? I guess that is it. Anything else you can think of for community spaces? Okay. And then at the end, what we'll do is after we go through these pages, and we'll also just talk generally through our subcommittees and see if there's anything we want to add. Okay, so innovation, we have 25% on the feasibility of different kinds of pop-up recreation. And we have some progress on that because discussion has started or because we don't do any of these things yet. We haven't done.
We
did
haven't
Brookline.
conducted a survey yet.
Not yet.
Okay.
We've done a couple of little enhancements to events, but we've done a couple new events at the pool. We did the dive-in movies and the underwater
Okay,
pumpkin patch.
true.
That's true.
So we've done a little bit,
Yes.
Okay.
but certainly more work to be done.
So innovation. Sorry, I'm just gonna write this down. And I remember we talked about freshness and newness,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we had dive-in
Pumpkin
movie,
patch.
pumpkin, what did we call that?
Dive-in pumpkin
Dive-
patch and
underwater
pool
pumpkin
movie.
patch.
Underwater pumpkin patch.
Yeah.
I thought that was clever.
Yeah,
I did too.
it was fun.
Underwater pumpkin
Seemed
patch.
like a big hit.
200 people.
Yeah, that's a big hit.
We tried,
That was a full pool.
Yes, it was.
Really?
Yes,
200 people showed up for
200
that?
people.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know so many had. We tried the zip line. What else have we done that's been new this year? Anyone think of anything else?
We had the inflatable snow globe.
Oh, that's right.
Ah,
Great.
that seemed like a big hit.
Yeah.
I think so.
I saw lots of pictures afterwards from it. Okay, good. All right, anything else on this? So, new classes and programs to the community. This is work of the program subcommittee. I would say primarily, let's see, what does it say? Determine facility availability for additional classes. Was that covered in subcommittee?
Yeah, it's
Or is this
more
kind of
on
done?
our end as staff, kind of identifying those opportunities for additional capacity.
Okay. Very good. And then, as far as that new classes and programs, I know that we've had a community member who's been very interested in seeing a chart that reflects, a pie chart perhaps, that reflects programs offered by demographic, by age group. And I don't think that'd be a bad idea, actually, to look at for us to see where those funds are going. Now, I guess we wouldn't be talking about facilities such as skate park, but it could cover costs like after-school program, not school bus, but certain things that are definitely programs related. So is that something that seems like it would be feasible? Would that be too difficult to put together, a little chart that shows us approximately what percentage of our programs, direct programming, are for small children?
So percentage of programming for each demographic or the cost of,
That's a good question.
I think the way that this was presented, not in a pie chart, but a graph, it was presented as how the money is being spent. That's what they wanted to see, that it was democratically fair to all demographics, that the amount of money that was being spent in each area was fairly distributed. Correct?
I think that was the intent. Now, what do you all think would be helpful information to see about about our programs and how we serve the community?
I think it'd be good to see the different age groups, what we offer.
I think it would be a valuable tool, but I do wonder about using it as a tool to say, therefore, we must distribute the funding equally through all age demographics, because different age demographics
Have different needs.
have different needs and make more use or less use depending on where they are in their life. It would be a valuable tool to see it, but not to the sense that, oh, we are spending way too much on this age demographic.
Right.
Let's pull it from there and start a bunch of programs that this other age demographic's not even going to use.
Correct.
So I guess that's my thoughts on
So
it.
perhaps not looking at funds spent, but perhaps even more of a list of what we offer.
A list and funds spent, it would be an interesting thing to
Just
see,
to
more to indicate. I mean, we do our programs in some respect in response to demand. And so if we are responding to demand and the demand that's coming in shows that we're spending more resources towards a specific demographic than another, that might be interesting. And we might say, let's do a little more outreach to this demographic that we aren't spending so much money. But in the end, people in certain demographics aren't at a phase in their life where they are going to use as much of much of the opportunities that we have, and another phase in their life they're going to use more. So
That is true.
I guess that's the way I said it.
Agreed.
I don't know if I said that really clearly.
No, I think it's very clear.
That's very true. And then what also complicates it is that we have community programs through, say, BDW, we have MOB with programming. That's also programming available to the community.
That's really true, and in some cases, those programs are in a co-sponsorship situation with the city, and those are
I was going to say that as
things
well.
that are made available, and how do we factor that into it?
Correct.
That's a little bit
Right.
difficult.
Because BDW, although it's its own entity, is definitely supported by the city
And Live
But-
Edition Blue.
and
is another
as
case.
well,
Right.
correct.
Which do add lots of programs. And I also know we have put programs out there that we think is just really great.
Yeah.
And then there's no response, and you go, what? I mean, there was a photography class.
Yes,
That we
yes.
tried to launch twice.
Yes.
Wonderful photographer, for a certain, well, for all age groups. And it didn't just, so we are trying to respond as well as we can to what the demand is, and that may show in inequity in the amount of funds given to each age demographic,
Right.
but I don't think that that's a bad thing necessarily.
Noreen, do you already have something, since you are analyzing programs and kind of looking at this from a higher level perspective, do you have something that you're using as a tool that perhaps that we can bring to this liaison meeting that perhaps is already together?
In terms of like
In
a
terms
list of
of
programs?
Programs reaching different, kind of analyzing, meeting different parts of different age groups or
Different demographics.
demographics.
Yeah,
of the
we can
community.
create something. Sure.
I know the demographic that was specifically being asked about was a preschool demographic, but with an overlay that it service working parents who are only available on the weekends. So it's like really breaking it down into, so just for this specific person who wants to see this, just saying we have all this programming for preschool, it still is not going to really fulfill what she's asking for. Her demographic is working parents who want programming for their preschool children on the weekend. So that's adding a whole other dimension to it. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, I think, if we're going to pull
I don't
data
think
and
we have any
information,
really, but-
yeah, it would be important to know, like, how granular are we going to get with our
Correct.
demographics? Are we saying preschool, or are we saying
Because I
preschool
think
on
we have
Saturdays?
a lot of preschool programming. We just don't really have any on the weekend.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much staff time to do this, but I do think that it might be helpful for a new family moving in perhaps, to be able to provide them with, you have school-age kids, your kids are 12 and 10, here are things that they can do in town. And that is a list that might include some non-city, some nonprofits in town.
Correct.
Just generally what's available in town. It seems like we could maybe keep a running list. It's something that
Right.
could begin a conversation or could just be helpful information.
Sure. I can work to create something.
Okay. And then we could take a look at it together and just add in some community or nonprofits that we know of and make that happen. But thank you.
Okay,
Appreciate
sure,
that.
sure.
I know this has been a request for a while, and I just wanted to address it and move on from that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's see. Examine opportunities to partner with the county and neighboring cities. Meet with representatives from surrounding communities to identify opportunities for partnerships. 25%. Daily City Senior Daily City Senior Services, South San Francisco, San Bruno Sports League. So we do some work together with those groups. And so we've included those. We could do more, but that's a start. Okay. Anything else on that page? Innovation? Okay, teen services, revival of the yak. We're still working on that. So, marketing and promotion. I know we did a wave of that did we do a more recent wave of marketing and promotion, Teresa? I know that
Well,
we did.
I think
we did like 2 years
Ricardo-
ago, I think.
I think a lot of that, the marketing and promotion, he might be speaking to the fact that he is showing up. He's really relying a lot on Lippman and showing up. He shows up to the after-school program, I think he said, every week or every other week, and he goes up and he's really making contact, and he's doing a lot of promotion in person, trying to cement those relationships with the kids, getting known, having them feel comfortable with him, and then like really trying to bring kids into the fold of getting involved in Yak.
So he's not actually leading an official class. He's
No, he's showing up and
Showing
helping
up.
out, and
helping out.
he does eventually want to start specifics, but that hasn't happened yet,
Okay.
to my knowledge.
Okay. Well, Lippman is a place, and I think the after-school program is a place to do it.
Yeah, he's focusing on the younger ages these days,
Okay.
rather than trying to, reel kids in the high school where they've kind of already left. Really hoping that to concentrate at the Lippman School, the younger teens, and then hopefully, maybe by the time they're in high school, they will still want to be involved, and we can have more of an age split there, but
I think that would be an excellent time to begin them with some leadership opportunities and
Yes.
training, so.
right.
Okay, anything else about YAC? Does have anything, because we're also on team subcommittee.
Teresa did fine
Okay,
discussing that.
let's see, establishing in-town opportunities for teens, teen area day in the park event. Tried it,
Tried it, didn't work.
it's always worth a try. A library to co-host teen events, they are doing that, so.
That's
we're-
happened.
yeah,
I know they had a Halloween party.
Okay, so when we talk about teens, we can talk about the teen area, that we tried that.
I know they've done
Yeah.
dances as well, so it seems 50%, maybe it's even more than that, because there have been dances, correct?
Yep.
At least one that I know of.
TNR does dances, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Refreshing the dances to attract more participation. What are we doing to refresh the dances, Noreen?
So they did a photo booth at one where the kids got to go home with photos. They provided pizza at the last one and did the Halloween with costumes. So trying to fold in some new ideas.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Ricardo said that the Halloween dance was a huge hit.
There were
Was
a
it? Oh,
lot.
that's
Yeah.
great.
It was a good turnout.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Okay, good. All right, so then let's move on to, and that's it for those 4 pages. Now, For individual subcommittees, did anyone have anything else they would like to go on the list of our accomplishments for the year?
If I could, just real quick, we just
Sure.
realized over here that the copies that got inserted into the packets have town connectivity twice.
Yes.
And the 5th page should have been trails, I believe. So unfortunately, that didn't make it into the packet, and we apologize. But I think a lot of that, if I remember correctly, referenced the bike ped master plan
too.
and said that, you know, a lot of that work was going to be deferred until after we knew what the consultant was going to kind of roll out
I think so.
for the larger city before we were going to make decisions as a commission how we wanted to allocate funds for trails.
I think so. And didn't we get our, some of our handrails this year? That's something that we'd wanted for a while at
think
Bicentennial.
so.
Did that happen
Yeah.
this year?
Walkway.
Okay, so we did see some improvements
Yeah.
this year on trails, including handrails.
At the community center and the bicentennial both.
And I think we had, the lighting was fixed too, right? Lighting there, lighting, repair. Okay.
So I apologize that didn't make it in. I didn't look at this copy before we came to the meeting
That
today.
is quite all right. If there was one to leave out, that was the one. Okay, so.
So through the chair, there's
yeah.
one thing I might add to the innovation page, and
Okay.
under organized new community events, it wasn't a new community event, it was kind of revamping an old community event, and that would be putting in the 30-year anniversary for Day in the Park, perhaps, because so much extra work was done towards
That's
that
true.
one.
I
And it
think that's notable.
really has a whole different face, had a whole different face to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And through the chair, I would add two other things. Certainly the implementation guidelines for, which comes up here on our agenda here, that is almost complete and would be probably complete by the time you make your report. And also, do we want to put something in about the banners and that, that we now have, I believe a series of 4 banners that will go up that,
Along visitation.
along visitation, yes.
It'll be 5, including yours.
5,
Yeah.
okay.
Can't wait to see yours. Good.
The live admission blue ones are supposed to be delivered on Friday.
Nice.
Wow.
And so
With your
what are
face.
the other 4?
The other ones that we had anticipated doing were one for Earth Day and our Habitat Restoration Days, and then for the summer concert series, and then Day in the Park and Derby, and then I think a general Welcome to Brisbane, City of Brisbane banner.
Great.
And that would go up in between the events so that we're always
We always have
replacing, we're
something.
always rotating them.
Yes.
Good.
Nice.
That is exciting. Excellent. And then, let's see what else. Anyone have anything else? We didn't mention Habitat Restoration Day,
No, we didn't.
that we worked with Open Space and Ecology to set dates and locations
Right.
for those days.
Mhm.
And Park and Rec staff was involved in those days as well, so we can add that.
And then you might want to also credit yourselves for the facility naming policy.
Oh, that's right. Facility naming policy. And did we want to add to public art the ad hoc committee for public art at the library? Because that is something that members of
Ye-
TNR are involved in.
You were involved in it. In terms of its establishment and stuff, that was done by the city council, I believe, in an April 2015 meeting, if I remember correctly. I don't know if we want to take credit for that. I mean, I think it is, you know, an important moment that as of this right now, the city has its first RFP out for public art, to commission a work of public art. That, of course, is due in part from the work that we've done here on the commission, and of course, it's also the work that city council's done as well.
We
But-
can talk about it as
But I think it's an important moment to maybe to notate that, that based on a number of years of work, we're now at that intersection.
Okay. I made note of that.
You know, a lot of people worked on that,
Yes,
including people on this commission, but also in
yes.
city council and so on.
Yes, yes, let's definitely talk about that as working together on that. Let's see, my notes said facilities, Mission Blue, we talked about that. Anything else? Naming policy.
The bench
We haven't
policy.
done any, that's true, benches, that's right.
We just did it.
They don't know that's coming their way yet.
Oh, that's right. That's for next year.
There's a surprise.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll see that perhaps, when would you think?
Well, we're going to bring it back to our next meeting in January.
Okay, so after our
potentially,
liaison meeting.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
February or March.
Anything else? You all can think of that we've done in the past year? If you think of anything, just let us know, and we can add it. It looks good. Okay, so we'll meet with Madison and Lori at the next meeting.
Did you
Our meeting.
put the new skate park down? That was accomplished.
That is right. That's true. We had the skate park ribbon cutting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty major thing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay. All right, if there's anything else you think of, we can add it. Terrific. All right, anything else on that matter? All right, so that is old business 6B. Let's move on to new business 7A, skate park naming process next steps. We have an attachment for that. Maureen, do you want to give us an intro for that one?
Sure. So since City Council expressed their support for the proposed facility naming policy, we're kind of going through our next steps in the process, which is to gather community input for naming suggestions. And so the goal tonight is to have the commission decide how we want to solicit that input from the community and potential users of the skate park. So we can talk about the various platforms we want to use to outreach to the community and get their input, and how long we want to solicit feedback, and take our next steps from there.
Okay. Can we start with a discussion of how long we want this process to take? We don't have any external time constraints as far as naming, right? Okay. Maybe we should start with, instead of time, we should start with what we want to do, and then
Well-
we can figure out how long that would take.
In reading the procedure, it talks about the formation of a committee that's made up of Parks and Rec Commission as well as City Council that become part of a naming committee. So the very first part of the procedure is that has to be created.
Okay.
And then they then go out, and so that committee will go then solicit the names. So if you're asking for us for recommendations about how to go out and solicit, we can do that. But I think ideally, the committee is the ones who are responsible for that committee, jointly made up of the Parks and Rec Commissioners and a city council member to go be part of the ones to solicit. So, that's the way I read the procedure.
Yes, so in talking to Stuart, he thought it would be more productive because the committee will be comprised of the Park and Rec Facilities Subcommittee and the City Council liaisons.
Okay.
And so he thought, well, let's just have the commission kind of decide how we want to go about soliciting names, and then once we have name suggestions from the community, we'll have that committee come together and review them.
Through the chair, so are we moving beyond the hypothetical now in this discussion to the actual? Because as I understand, there is only one actual facility that needs a name attached to it.
Correct.
And that is the skate park.
Correct.
Okay, and we don't have any other ones
No.
out there. So moving next, this subcommittee would meet with representatives from the skate park, and, I mean, that's the specific thing that,
So what we're hoping to do is identify how we want to go about reaching out and gathering suggestions from the community, whether it be a community-wide survey or using social media platforms for people to provide their input. So kind of identifying what those opportunities are for the community to provide their input so that staff can go ahead and start the process.
okay, well, again, speaking in terms of not the theoretical, but really what's out there is that I would think that the first people you would want to talk to are the kids that went through this whole process. My understanding is they do have a strong idea of what it wants to be named. Now, maybe for the sake of procedure, there should also be a larger outreach to members of the community, but certainly they should have the strongest stake in what that's being named.
Yeah, and there has been a suggestion that was made to city council several months ago. I don't recall exactly when. So there already is one suggestion that's been on the table. But I think reaching out to those skate park advocates who are so, instrumental in the new skate park would definitely be one platform that we want to make sure that we kind of exercise.
Okay, so what we want to do is discuss ideas for outreach.
Yes.
And then, once we have those ideas and we kind of get that in motion, then we can establish that group, the subcommittee, with the council liaisons and some members of our commission to have the naming subcommittee
Yes.
for this particular, for the skate park.
Yes.
So, well, let's discuss outreach ideas. So you mentioned the importance of reaching out to the skaters
Yes.
and how best to do that.
So social media is probably a strong way of doing this, and in all outlets, the city does participate in social media. So via Instagram, via Facebook, via Twitter, right? So Twitter and Facebook, you can do polling. So you can set up polls and poll through those two social medias as a way to collect data. Instagram, it simply could be asking the same questions and have a link to a Survey Monkey or something like that to offer ideas.
Okay.
So those social media avenues should be used. Potentially, there also might be at the skate park itself, kind of a suggestion names, a place to sign up, put something down, put a box, I don't know, to put a name in, something like that. Because if a person goes there, they have the name. I mean, try to solicit that way as well. Or some suggestions that I have, and then that's what I come up with right now, top of my head.
We might want to reach out to Michael Barnes because he did a good job of gathering those kids together to ask for the skate park, and he might be interested in pulling them together as a group, having a meeting with them.
Yeah, could it be as simple as, I'm just thinking of the pragmatic reality of it versus the theoretical aspect of how this should be done in a theoretical situation. But could it be done by reaching out to Michael and saying, okay, now we have this policy in place. We know that you're well connected to the kids that have been involved in this from the beginning. We're going to have a meeting. We'd like to hear your thoughts on this. But I think it should also be coupled with the community at large, that they should be invited to that same meeting in case there are other ideas out there that should be put in the hopper. We don't want to just say, okay, you've got a lock on it, come give us the name and it's done. Mm-hmm. But do we just have a what's it called, an ad hoc committee meeting called with enough time and enough announcement out there through social media platforms, through the city website, and so on, and say this meeting is going to happen, and show up, and certainly try to make sure that these kids who work so hard on the skate park are there and well represented, but also make sure that if there's somebody there who does have other ideas that they want to put in the mix, and I don't think it needs to be any more difficult than that.
No.
Yeah.
It's an avenue to do it. I agree.
And then perhaps instead of having different polling mechanisms, we direct everyone toward the website for the city and have one place to submit name ideas.
You mean outside of coming to the meeting?
Or if there's just a Survey Monkey, like rather than using the Facebook polling or the Instagram polling, just have a link for a Survey Monkey, so all the voting is kind of going into one place. I mean, that same link can be posted everywhere, but it just goes into one place, so you're not gathering info, which might also mean people could vote in many, they can vote in all three and have, their vote counted 3 times for one thing. I think just voting once in one place is probably a better idea, and it doesn't seem so convoluted. But that link can be posted on everywhere.
That's true. And we can direct people to the city website, and perhaps it could be on the front page. Does that sound practical? Have one
Yeah.
survey through something like SurveyMonkey that we can then just put out through social media. And there's wonderful communication about what's going on in the city, email,
Yeah.
Facebook, those are the ones that I
City
see.
blog, yeah.
City blog,
Yep. We can put it on the homepage,
all of that.
maybe announce it in the Star.
Absolutely, that'd be
Yes.
great. On the signboards,
Yeah,
so
signboards would be great.
Okay.
all of that would be good.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other ideas?
And if you need one of us to post to the residents page, we can
Okay.
do that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That would be good.
Can't hurt.
Okay.
Okay,
That
great.
doesn't sound too difficult.
No,
One survey,
Makes sense.
and put it out in different places. Okay, good. Do we need any other discussion about, I guess that's a good start, and then we'll figure out, do we already know who is going to be on that ad hoc committee?
If it's the Park and Rec liaisons, then it's Lori and Madison.
Okay. And then from the commission, is it,
Probably makes the most sense to be the Facilities Subcommittee.
okay, some facilities.
I think it's Lyle, you,
Myself,
Karen.
you, Karen.
Oh. Like, who is the other person on that one? Okay, good, we can do that. All right,
And
well,
then-
that sounds good.
Just one more thing, sorry,
Uh-huh.
Karen. Just how long we want to
Oh, how
have
long?
that survey accessible.
Well, let's see, we have to do if we want to put it in the Star, then it's kind of dependent on that cycle, right?
So it would have to go into the February Star,
Which goes out mid-February,
first week of February.
first week of? Do you think it's important for it to be in the Star? I think it kind of is. And there's no rush.
Yeah.
Star, so if we did
and have it open maybe the whole month of February for polling.
1 month?
Yeah.
I think
Month?
that's enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, I'm excited to see how this works. Our new policy in action. Excellent. All right, so let us move on to, where are we? Oh, Public Art Implementation Guidelines Draft. Okay. We finally are here. Happy to
Yeah,
say.
it took a long time.
So Kevin, do you want to give us an intro to this, being your baby?
Yes. So here it finally is. The draft for the Public Arts Implementation Guidelines. And our plan was to bring it here for the rest of the members of the commission to read and give us some input on. We've gone through it and built it page by page, and we might be a little bleary-eyed and blind to the obvious misdirection on it. And then following this, based on any changes that we make, I think that the next step would be that we invite a few members from the community, both from the arts community and also from the business community, and I have in fact talked to a few people about doing that, to read it and then come to a subcommittee meeting and give us their input. Let's see, so should I read through this first page, or how do you want to,
Well, let's see.
how do you guys want to tackle this?
Three of us
Three of us.
gone through this,
Yes.
and then so we are relying on.
Teresa was
looking
part of it for a while.
Yeah, looking forward to.
Teresa
feedback
sort
from
of
Teresa
has
and Lyle.
seen the bare bones of it,
Yeah.
and probably has some interesting observations now seeing it fully developed. I would say just a couple of things before we get into it. I have underlined extremely important that public art is reflective of community and not some cookie cutter piece of art. And this is one thing that we tried to write into it at every step of the game, that public art is, when it's done well, is integral to the design of the building or the surroundings that it's intended to be connected to, as opposed to, geez, we built this building, now we need a public art thing, so let's buy a statue and plop it down in the center of the atrium. And I think that when you take this approach and an artist is on board early on, they can take things into consideration, such as, how is the light going to fall at different times of day on this light installation and on this art installation and so on. There are two different tracks that this public arts ordinance can trigger. One is when the development is above $5 million, the developer has the opportunity to install public art on their property, in their building, as long as it's as accessible to the public and so on. And that triggers a sort of a different oversight process than if the city is going to put public art into a public space, where there's a much more robust conversation with more community members and so on involved. Another highlight of it, and this is in the first pages before we get to it, is how the public arts funds are divided up. Because if you have, let's say, $50,000 for public art, that doesn't all necessarily go to the artist. There needs to be some money put aside for administration of the process. There needs to be some money put aside, if it's a mural, for example, for restoration, as you go down the line on it, which we know is a lesson from the current mural that's in town. And so we have some percentages in with that. With that, do we want to go through it page by page? How do you want to proceed?
Well, we're looking forward to feedback from Lyle and from Teresa on this.
Yeah.
So what would you prefer to do? Would you like to read it
Well,
paragraph
so,
by paragraph? Do you want to just give us your feedback?
well, in fairness to me, the feedback, or the form that I received, the document, was hard to read. The copy that I got, every other line or so is not visible in my copy.
Oh, no.
So just maybe a scan, because I'm using it electronically, so I can't read all the words, so I don't necessarily got all, meaning, one thing that so I can't comment on everything right now, but one comment that I did have, again, because we talked about it earlier in regards of the bench and the memorial, we gave it a time year of 10 years. I don't see any time on the public art. So again, I install public art in 2017, it stays there in perpetual, stays there, or does it come down sometime? If it's privately done on that person's property in the building, so when the building goes away, does the art go away? Does the art stay? I didn't see things around art. Now, because again, art can be in many forms. It can be an installation of lights, it can do a statue, it can be a physical entity, it could be a mural, lots of different things it can be, so art can't be defined. Just wondering, is there or was there an intent for a time frame or the longevity of the art? How long to be in a location? Did it have some time frame like that? Expiration, if you will. I don't know, just something that came into my mind when I was reading over it in comparison with the plaque and the bench ideas. So, don't know that you need it.
It's an interesting point, and it's something that when we looked at, I don't know how many, 10 or more implementation guidelines from different cities, we didn't see anything addressing that.
Yeah, and I think the intention is that the public art becomes a part of a permanent collection, and the idea of holding a certain amount of money back when it's originally made, in the case of a mural, anticipating that some years down the line it would need restoration. Other kinds of public art may not be subject so much to that. We have the library coming up. That's the first real case in point, and we'll certainly learn probably a lot more as we go through a first actual process. But in the library, for example, if the public art installation became tile mosaics or literary quotes on the floor in cement, well, those would last a pretty long time, until the building comes down or something. So these things aren't really written with that in mind. You'd raise a good question about when it's in private a private ownership, when it's a business in private ownership, and I'm trying to think what happens when that's decommissioned. And you'll have to give me a minute to think about it, to find what we wrote on that.
Process question. Lyle, since you haven't had a chance to look at this ahead of time, do you and Teresa want to go through it and read it aloud and discuss paragraph by paragraph, section by section? What would you prefer?
I'm personally feeling comfortable that the three commission members who have worked on this have done a great job. And I know that I was part of that in the very beginning when it was starting to come together. But if Lyle would like to read over the whole thing, my copy was also a little spotty, although I was able to read it. I do see what you had about every other line. I don't know if that was a print, it might have been an ink issue. Although it couldn't have been, because I have a different,
Well, no, even the hard
Different
copy I was
printer.
given, you can see where some of the hard copy,
Okay.
the ink is lighter than other places. Again, it's manageable. Again, I did go through it. Again, I didn't. Again, I can't say that I read every word, but I did get a good spirit. And again, really, the only for me was in thinking about longevity. Again, then I started to think so as well. If I think of where people go visit on holidays, if they go to Italy, they look at the ruins. That's public art, if you will, that's been there for centuries. So public art doesn't have a duration. My only really concern was around the private art. If it's on a building, that building, that company goes out of business, that building, whatever, gets torn down, what happens to the art there? Does it go along with it away? I don't know. Again, if I'm thinking a piece of art that is a statue or a ball or something that's a physical entity versus something like Kevin mentioned where it could be part of the building, like it could be tiles. I don't know. I don't know that it's like the other question. It's so many years down the road, maybe, when that comes across the path, deal with it then. May not be needed here. It's just my thought. Other than that, I'm very comfortable with what the policy, the way I read it. So,
Okay, thank you.
it's very thorough.
yeah, very thorough.
Thanks, Lyle. I think I will put a note here for further discussion about decommission, because just glancing through this, and we read probably about 20 other cities' public arts ordinances, and they all become a blur, and how much of it actually got in here, I'm not sure of. But I think I will put a note here that we should maybe in subcommittee have a further discussion about decommissioning or whether there needs to be more specifics put in for that contingency. Or perhaps that is something that gets written further down the line. This isn't an ordinance, these are guidelines, and so I think we fully expect that as time goes on and we have a few little bumps and things, and we go, oh, we didn't think of that, that we would be refining this, further.
I think that would be good, Kevin, and, because we have a situation coming up at Sierra Point that could possibly be related to Lyle's Point.
Yes.
Right? So we have
Yes.
something, maybe we should address that, or we should discuss that point and talk about it.
Yes.
Because you have a private entity that's coming in that might be interested in art for a finite amount of time, and then what happens when they move on, because they don't own the building.
Right. Right.
So-
And we have, just to clarify that, we've only had some discussions about it, and it hasn't moved very far along. But the 7,000, 5,000 buildings out on in Sierra Point they were the first thing to trigger the public arts ordinance, and in order to get their certificate to complete it, they had to put that money into the in lieu of fund. And my recollection is that's $85,000. But they did it with sort of a tentative agreement that perhaps the tenant that moves in might want some of that money back to use that for public art on the premises. This is a little unusual. We don't have implementation guidelines in place yet to say yes or no. Yes, you can have the money back, or no, we want to keep it and spend it. But the amount of money that was put into restoring it was above the $5 million limit. They had to be above that in order to do that in their space. However, my understanding is that the organization that wants to come in there may want to use as their public art something that's iconic to their specific business. And so we've had preliminary conversations about whether that is indeed public art, because when they leave, then do we want this, even though it could well be indeed public art, but because it is specific to their business, another business comes in, they don't want it, and what happens, and how does that impact that? So we do have a conversation, and we don't have an answer on that, that will be coming down the pike for us to deal with. But my understanding about the latest in that is that there's a fair amount of time that's gone along, and the city hasn't heard back from them saying, okay, hey, we're ready to have this conversation, and by the way, we do want X amount of our money back. So is that reflect
Yes.
your memories of
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Okay, so we'll make a note of that. Thank you, Lyle, for
Yeah.
that comment. That's a good one, so. Okay, good.
That's it?
I know, I
Sorry.
Nothing else?
kind of expected there should be.
Then
I know.
I will take that as a vote of confidence
That's
in the
wonderful,
hard work
actually.
that
You've done an amazing job,
that we
Evan.
did for this.
It feels good to finally get it here to the commission
Right.
after working on it for so long.
Yeah,
And so then
Very run out process.
just moving forward on this, our next step would be,
So I spoke with Stuart about this. He thought that waiting to hold the community meeting until late February or mid-February after Artist Evening of Sharing would be a better idea, so that it could be announced at Artist Evening of Sharing to get more people to participate in the community meeting.
okay, well, I had a different
Okay.
sense of what we would do next.
Okay.
And that was to specifically invite key people to a subcommittee meeting, give it to them in advance, have them read it. And in fact, I had thought a manageable group and good input would be 2 people from the business community and 2 people from the arts community. Now, we could do something beyond that, or we could say, no, we're not going to do it that way. We could do something beyond that and then have another larger meeting after the evening of sharing and announce it there and try to bring in a larger community meeting thing. But what we want right now, I think what we would like is to have a small number of people read it very carefully and give us, and see if it makes sense to them, and give us something like what Lyle picked up, that we're missing an aspect, and is that important?
Okay.
So my thinking was that we would do this in our next subcommittee meeting in January. But am I stepping out of line to propose that?
No, I don't think so.
Well, maybe let's do that step next and see how that situates, because I would see then possibly sending it to City Council after that.
Okay.
Unless, and this would be for everybody here, unless we think that there is really a broader interest within the community to look at the nuts and bolts of it. I think always when we think about people looking at this, studying, is that, of course, the first people we think about is the artist having input, but I think it really is important to have the business community have a real look at it as well, because they're the kinds of people that are going to end up having to adhere to this and so on. So I think that having a balance between those 2 groups of people is really important.
And it being a subcommittee meeting, anyone could attend who would.
Yeah, it would be an open subcommittee meeting. I mean, it should be open. They are open, and it should be open, and if other people want to come. But I would really see us as sending this out to some individuals a week in advance, finding a meeting. And Mitch Bull is one of the people that I've asked, for example, to be representative of the business community. And then there is a woman, I believe her name's Jennifer, who works at By-Right, who's very, very active in the chamber. She has tentatively agreed to sit through one of these meetings and give us her input. And then 2 people from the artist community.
Have you picked those 2 people?
I have. I mean, I've asked two people, I mean, we could move it around. I've asked Beth Grossman, and I've asked Tony Press. And I thought it would be really good to, Tony Press is a writer. I thought it would be really good to have a writer take a look at it and say, you know, this is
That's a good
this is a dangling particle here, in the, you know, dangling participle here, and maybe it doesn't make sense or whatever. Plus,
Okay.
of course, he's an artist as well. So those were the two people I identified. But we can broaden it, and what do you guys think?
Yeah,
I think that sounds
I
great.
think
that's
sounds
enough.
good to me.
I think we need the community buy-in and for them to kind of vet it and look at it before we go into actual application of it, you know, use of it. I think
Right, well, and then it goes
yeah.
to city council, and then that's another public meeting, and they may want to send it to the planning commission, which is what they did with the ordinance before that got passed, and it should get passed around
Right,
Yes.
Right.
as much as possible.
Okay, good. So then we'll set that when we set subcommittee meetings.
Yes.
That'll be good. Okay, great. Anything else about that? Thank you. Public Art Subcommittee. It's been a pleasure working with you, and we'll continue the work. Let's see, we'll move on to reports. Chairperson, I don't have anything. Subcommittees, we can move right into that. Subcommittee meeting, Festival of Lights. We can talk about how that went.
that went really well. I think the snow globe was really popular. I think that was a nice idea. I think having the refreshments under the gazebo was another good idea, because it had always been out on the street.
That was, yes.
And I thought that was a good idea. And Renee was our spokesperson for everyone. She introduced each group, and it was nice, the dancers and the singers. I thought it was a nice, really nice thing. The idea was to stop at businesses, and they didn't do that.
We tried.
Yeah,
It wasn't from a lack of trying.
I know, it just didn't work. But on a whole, I think it was terrific.
Through the chair, the snow globe was brilliant.
Yes,
It really was brilliant. You know, I was there to take photos of the event, and what I loved was everybody taking photos of their kids going into the snow globe, and that's a keeper, I
yes.
think.
I think that's a great idea,
Yeah.
to do it every year.
Yeah.
It's just a fun thing to do. And if they did their kids, the kids are a little bigger the next time, and I just thought that was a great
And
idea.
there were some adults in that snow globe.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
I wanted to go in the snow globe.
Yeah, that was a great addition. I thought the layout was very good. Also, the sound, I think, was the best we've had
It was
in
very
my
good.
memory.
Uh-huh.
We were able to hear everything. There were no issues with sound and music. We were able to see the dancers. It was very, I thought, very successful. Thank you for all of your work putting that together, guys. Appreciate that.
So did Park and Rec do the snow globe, or was that a fundraiser?
We did
I
it.
thought I'd heard it was a fundraiser
No.
from one of the organizations in
No.
town.
We did it.
Okay, excellent. Nice job.
So any other discussion about Festival of Lights? And I think as long as Renee is on the commission, she should be the MC. 'cause
She
did
does a
great
good job.
She has the outfit.
She has the
song.
wardrobe, I was going to say. She has the wardrobe for it.
She had a hat that had the lights all blinking.
If I ever have to do it, I'm going to go to her closet, look through her
Oh,
wardrobe.
maybe you should, 'cause I kind of like to see that. So, yes, excellent. Anything else on that? I thought that was very successful. Good job, everyone. Seniors? Update
You
on
want to go,
seniors?
Ellen?
Oh, I'll let you do
Okay.
that.
We met, Renee and Kevin and I, and we talked about different things that we could do to have, beef it up a little bit. Like today, we got 2 new members. So we keep getting new members, and that's always good. The Sunrise Room is very popular. They have lots of activities. And I think it's Teresa. I think she does a good job there. But as far as the club goes, it seems to be working fine. We have more money. We can take more trips this year.
Nice,
So they gave us extra money. So instead of 2 trips, we'll take 3 trips.
excellent.
So it seems to be fine.
Bonnie, when is the first trip scheduled?
Uh,
In the spring?
they vote in January.
Oh, okay, they decide then.
And they decide what, I give them a
Oh,
sheet,
okay.
and they decide where
That's
they want to
great.
go or what they want to do.
Excellent.
And then depending what it is, then I have to figure out the weather or whatever.
Mm-hmm, okay. Nice. Excellent. Look forward to hearing about that. Recreation programs, after-school and weekly camp programming. Would like to give us a
Would you
report
like
on
me
that
to take that, Lyle? Feel free to jump in wherever you
I
feel
will.
necessary to do so, because it was a long meeting. Lyle and I met with Steve. There were two community members present, Dee Dee Porter and Anya Miller. Dee Dee Porter wanted to talk about the after-school rec programming. She really felt that there was a need for more organized and interesting activities to keep the kids from being bored. And she had lots of recommendations and ideas. Steve did tell her that there were already some in place that were scheduled to be happening soon, and that there was even one that, I think a language one that she wasn't aware of. But it was all duly noted, and I think she left the meeting feeling that her issues were addressed and listened to. And we asked her to come back and, not just to leave it there, but, if these were her issues, we did ask her to kind of let us know what the progress was, if she found that, if the issues were being addressed or not. We wanted to hear feedback. We wanted her to come back, and she was excited about that and said that she would.
Teresa, I have a quick question about that. Did she mention the after-school activities through BES, and were her children also attending those activities? Or is she saying that she wanted additional activities through, and it sounds like she wants additional programming?
Additional programming, I believe, just through the after-school program at BES. I'm not sure if I'm clear about what you're talking about.
Oh, there are also after-school programs.
Through
at
the school itself.
school
Yeah, no, she was talking about specifically, and Steve did bring that up, that a lot of it's hard because their staff is taking kids often to like these different programs depending on what they're doing. But I guess there are still a group of kids who aren't signed up for a lot of that stuff. And they're still there. And she felt that they're really just kind of being watched.
Okay.
That there's no structure and that, it's like, okay, there's so much playtime, but now what are we doing? And she really wanted to see some structured activities. She suggested that each leader take on just something that they're good at or something that they're interested in and teach that to the kids and, start that as a specific activity for a specific day. That was just her thinking.
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. And then Anya Miller talked about what we've kind of talked about already. She really wanted to see programming for preschool kids of working parents being scheduled on the weekend. And she did bring in her spreadsheet, which really showed that there was nothing for this demographic, which is true. There's a lot of preschool programming, and there is a lot of preschool stuff in town, through BDW and maybe through MOB and elsewhere. But it's not really... we discussed that there are difficulties with weekend programming. Just the staff programming, and even interest, because it's just a difficult time for families, and we don't consistently. I brought up the fact, being a BDW board member, that it hasn't worked for BDW to offer dance classes on the weekend for this specific demographic or any demographic. Number one, it's hard to pay. We don't get enough enrollment to cover the cost of the teachers. Families are very busy on the weekend. You bring in families with multiple ages, and it gets spread out, and it's a very difficult time. It doesn't mean it can't be tried.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's something we can take into consideration. Perhaps that's another polling idea, just to see if we really could. I suggested that, we need to hear from these people. I mean, we're hearing from her, but she doesn't necessarily have that own demographic going on in her immediate household that I know of. We'd like to hear from other people in the community. And so, yeah, maybe some polling and some outreach needs to take place.
And if I just might add something. So I think we used to have a Music Together weekend program for preschoolers. And that was run independently, and I think it was a contractor that worked used I don't know, it was Mission Blue, but I know that we've had that in the past. And perhaps we can partner with the library as well, because that's a facility that's open during the weekend.
Yes.
And that could be something.
And there were suggestions, both from Steve and even Dee Dee. Dee Dee suggested that, the mob is a great resource, and it's not necessarily programs or classes, but we do have the park, we do have the library, just networking with other families, with kids of the same age group and working parents. There are activities going on. And then Steve recommended just brought up the fact that, we're a very small town. And there are a lot of things offered within a 5-mile radius for this demographic. If this were in San Jose through Park and Rec, you might drive 10 or 15 miles to get to a class. So yes, it may not be offered in our city, but there are a lot of offerings within a 5-mile radius of Brisbane for this demographic. And, but yes, it's not something we offer specifically here, just because we haven't felt the drastic need for it or a huge, it's a hard demo to get people into to want, I guess.
So did you talk about surveying to find out if there's a need, or that's something?
Well, it was her suggestion
Oh, okay, it was her suggestion.
that it was our responsibility to do the outreach. And so, yes, that is something we can look at. We might not go out one-on-one and talk to people because we have day jobs, and that's not something we can do, but we can certainly set up some kind of a survey and see if there is a need and want out there.
Maybe it could be in the Star. If there's an interest, call, whatever.
Yeah, and I know we talked about it as part of the commission work plan about doing a community-wide survey about rec programs in general and what are people interested in
Right.
and what type of new events would they partake in. So
Exactly.
So that
maybe
could be
kind of
part of
folding that into a community-wide park and rec survey might be the way to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me look over my notes and see if I...
Did we identify approximate time of year we might do that, Noreen? A community-wide park and rec survey?
We didn't yet, but we can. I mean, we're going to be sending out the skate park survey. Steve's actually going to be sending out a survey to the after-school BES families regarding the after-school program and what types of enrichment they would like to see, and kind of assessing how the first half of the year has gone with the new management and how they would like to envision the second half of the year, as well as kind of gauging their level of interest for summer programming, because we had so many camps that ended up being canceled last year,
Yes, that's
that we want to
true.
start the process early to kind of anticipate what the needs and wants are of the community so that we can make, educated decisions about summer programming. So that's going to be going out at the beginning of the year too. So we might want to space this a little bit further out into the new year.
Or could be combined into one, do you think? Or does that seem
It could
too much?
be.
I mean, just kind of general thoughts about park and rec. Is it meeting your needs? What are you interested in?
We could, yeah.
No. Seems like it's kind of the same information.
I don't want to interrupt, but
Go ahead.
I need to. We're having some sound issues,
Oh, we
so
are?
you need to get a
Oh,
little
okay.
closer to
Right,
your
thank you.
microphone. Sorry, thank you.
Thank
Is
you
this
for letting us
something
know.
that maybe the Recs program subcommittee could get together with city staff members to start working on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, personally, I'd rather see it done sooner rather than later so that we
Yeah.
can get a jump start on summer
Yes.
programming and
Absolutely.
kind of making changes to our after-school program and
Definitely.
so forth.
I think
so.
that sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can schedule a subcommittee meeting for programs when we get to 2. All right, anything else for rec programs?
Just to say that after this meeting, the one piece of communication that came in from the community was was a letter from Anya about how she felt about how that meeting went. And so that was noted. And yeah, she just didn't feel listened to, so felt like she wanted to reiterate everything in an email to us. So
Okay.
just to let her know that,
And I received that as a copy of that, and and that was also shared with staff, so.
Yes.
That was feedback for everyone. Okay. All right, thank you for that. Teens?
Is it you again?
teens,
Discuss programming ideas. Did the subcommittee meet for teens?
we did, and I do have, oh, I do. Yes, thank you. Okay, so the subcommittee met. It was myself and Kevin, and we met with Ricardo. And the first thing we talked about was the school bus issue. And it seems like we're going to be looking for a new school bus company. That's not necessarily a park and rec issue, but it is because Ricardo is the one that has to deal with it. But he will keep us updated on what's happening with that. The second thing we talked about was just his progress with trying to form the YAC committee. And still don't really have any YAC members. And as I said earlier, he is spending a lot of time up at Lippman at the after-school program, just really trying to build a rapport with the students up there and get some interest in YAC going. And we discussed the fact that, you know, we were really going to be trying to hit those middle schoolers rather than focusing on the older teens. Just building relationships, establishing the rapport. He also gave us a quick synopsis of the middle school Halloween dance, which he said was absolutely great, and the high school Halloween event at the library, which he said was really not so great. He didn't feel that it was very well attended. Kids tend to drop in really quick, grab something to eat, and scoot out the door. They didn't seem to have any interest in hanging out. But he did have a meeting coming up with the library folks, and he was going to talk to them about it and see if that was their same perspective as well. He presented us with a lot of information about, you know, other cities and their YAC, just kind of similar to the art implementation guidelines, just seeing how other cities are doing it and what works and what doesn't work, and just trying to draw from that. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Was the high school dance a partnership with the library, or was that a library activity?
I'm not sure if it was,
It wasn't a dance, it was a
It wasn't a-
library
A
event.
party?
yeah,
Yeah, and I think they intended for it to be movie and pizza or something like that.
yes,
Okay.
But it was
Halloween.
specifically library.
right.
Oh,
But-
it was,
but he
it was
atten-
library event?
Yes.
Okay. I was just
He
going to
attend-
put it on our list of.
Yeah.
Sorry, Teresa.
I'm sorry.
It's
He
okay.
attended with a specific intention of connecting with the
Yeah.
teens.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And then, has he considered actually creating a class with, say, Michelle Chan and the after-school program at Lippman about leadership, and just making it a class and seeing if kids sign up for it? Has he tried that?
I don't know if he's specifically tried a leadership class, but he is, I think, exploring some kind of classes. Kevin, do you recall specifically what he might have said, what types of things he was doing at Lippman?
I got the impression that he is just going up there to be known, to see
Right.
more, to listen more, to get to know the kids, to identify who the leaders are, and to try to, you know, if you get a few of the leaders, you'll get a larger group of people. I was more or less impressed with
Right.
the information he was giving us. I'm sort of new to this, and I'm still learning. I think one of the things that I'm getting out of this, and was a large part of our discussion, was the difference in these two age groups, the middle school kids who are still here and rooted in Brisbane, and it's an easier group to get involved in activities, versus the high school kid who, boy, now this is when Brisbane's a small town and they want to do everything outside of Brisbane. And that was reflected a little bit in the success of those two parties.
Right.
One, the middle school age, which
Correct.
was enormously successful.
Absolutely.
And then the party that the library did for high school kids, where people kind of in and out and on their way. Once they get a car, they're gone. So that's sort of my overall impressions.
Right. I think he did mention that he wanted to eventually have a specific program or class or for his time there to be around something, but I don't think there was any specific intent at this point. He's still trying to build the rapport and the relationship with kids
I think that sounds like a good
to
place
kind of
start.
become
Yes,
well-known.
it's a good start.
I
Yeah.
think so too.
I think that we haven't had anyone that really was focusing on them, and this makes a big difference.
It's hard to reach that high school age group.
Yes.
It really is, and we'd like to do something
Like he says,
for
they get a
them.
car.
It's
And
true, they
it would
have-
be
they
really
have their
great
communities.
to grab those kids while they're in middle school. And if you get somebody, and it might be, one out of every couple of dozen of kids, who knows, that is going to start off at the middle school age and maybe gets that community bug of, really wanting to be involved. I think of like a Madison Davis, for instance, who is just maybe through high school going to stay involved and be that mentor towards the younger kids.
Yeah.
But I think right now the focus is going to be trying to find that in the younger group and see what happens.
That makes sense. And I know one of your ideas has been some sort of a music event for
Right.
the teens. I'd love to see that happen. I would
Yes,
be interested
yeah.
in helping out with that. That seems like something that, there are a lot of kids in town, a lot of teens with musical talents and interests, and
Right,
I think they'd like to share and hear others.
right. As I've said a million times, I think music's the common language for kids, and it's something that they feel passionate about, and I think it's something that will unite them, and it can be a good springboard. Although we did not talk about that at our last meeting. Right now, the focus is yak, but it is something we've been working on. So
Yeah, good. Okay, anything else for teens? Thank you, Teresa, for your,
you're welcome.
are you also giving us the next update? And let me see, concerts in the park.
Kevin,
We were going to split that.
go Kevin.
Teresa and I are going to split this, and I'll go first, because there are really two intertwined things that we've been looking at, concerns we've been looking at with concerts in the park. One is increasing the quality of bands, which Teresa's going to talk about. It'll fold over a little bit into what I'm going to say. And the second part is about funding. And as you know from previous two meetings, we had this conversation with stakeholders in the community, and that we have a difficult perception within the community that if they write a check for concerts in the park, that there's the potential that some small portion of that might just get folded over into the general fund. And the reality of that is that we did have a surplus in 2 years, quite some time back. I think it's 2011, 2012. And then subsequent to that, we've had 4 deficits each year. So we had asked if we could start a new policy where we could put forward a fundraising letter and a fundraising idea that if you write a check to Concerts in the Park, that the funds that you write will go towards paying artists' fees. Now, the counter argument to that has, we've gone back and forth many years about this with Stuart. Stuart dropped in on our subcommittee meeting yesterday, Monday, yes, to talk about this, because we had brought it up through subcommittee and then we had put it on the agenda last time. And we had a very long conversation about it. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, which comes first. We make more money, and so we hire more bands, or we hire more bands and then make more money. The bottom line is that this policy will not be changed, and Stuart's reasons were valid. I'd heard them before. They are a little complicated, and they have to do with other costs for concerts in the park that aren't immediately apparent, like staff time and cleanup time and so on and so forth. What he put forward is that, in fact, we never make a profit, or we never have a surplus, even in those good years, because the costs of administration stuff more than covers for that. So, so that leaves us, and I don't know how to go back to those particular members of the community and talk to them about it, but what we did decide is that we are committed to improving, to trying to put together a process by which we improve the quality of bands year over year. And the first way to start, on average we spend $10,000 a year, is that as we select bands for next season, we are going to select with a $12,000 to $13,000 budget in mind, and then we will go to City Council and say, we want, and the community wants, better quality bands. Will you approve of this? And then the fundraising will follow from that. The idea, what we would hope is that as bands improve, we would then see more funds coming in year over year, with the idea in mind that each and every year, in fact, we will always have a deficit. So that, so that's how that went. Does that accurately
Yes, it does.
sum that up? And then I'll turn over the idea about improving the quality of music, which is really the second half of it, or the important part of it. I'll turn that over to
Yes.
Teresa to speak to.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So as far as the donations and encouraging donations so that people don't feel that any overage just goes into the general fund, could it just be a matter of semantics of letting people know that all donations go toward the programs, toward music in the park?
Right.
Not necessarily toward artists, but toward this program, toward these days or these evenings, so that they know that it's at least staying within the program.
And not just that, I brought that up at the commission meeting because I think the perception is we keep hearing it goes to the general fund. Does that mean the whole city general fund? Or does it really mean that the money is specifically being designated for music in the park?
Yeah,
Whether that's
and the
20,000
answer, and
or-
we talked at great length about this because it is a little bit complicated. And my response to that was, in fundraising, you want a really concise sentence that says, all of your money goes into the pockets of our artists.
Or how about all the money goes to concerts in the park? I mean, just,
The event.
It becomes more, if you start breaking it down and it becomes a more complicated, you can't put Stewart's argument, which was valid, into a fundraising letter because it'd be 6 pages long, you know. And I think if we didn't have this perception problem out there in the first place, we wouldn't be in this situation. But that perception is out there, regardless of whether it's perception or reality. It doesn't make a lot of difference. Moving forward in terms of fundraising, you know, I think we do put a line in that says your money goes towards ensuring better quality performances.
Right.
That's the sentence. It's true that the businesses, you know, the business community, they're not upset about this. They're not paying any attention to this,
Right.
and that is probably the majority of the funding that we're getting. But in terms of building a larger individual funding base, there is perhaps an obstacle there. But what we're hoping, and this was what I got at the conclusion, this was a 45-minute conversation that we had. What I'm hoping for is that by being allowed to, if the City Council allows us a larger budget next year, and we do have better bands, that the people the individuals who are donating to this will see results, and that will be the motivator,
Yes.
the driver behind increasing the donation base year over year. Does
Yes.
that make sense? Is that what you-
Absolutely.
So, better bands, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
I hate saying better bands. But I think as
Better quality events.
better quality events, yes. I think we've been consistently staying, you know, for instance, if our budget is $10,000, we just had a printout of what a lot of bands cost. And really, one of the bands that was on our list that we really wanted to get was a $9,000 band.
Yes.
And this is a band that is performing in other cities on their music, and we just are pulling from a much lower priced group of bands. And some of them are very good, and we can continue to use some of those, but we would also like to be able to reach a little higher and pull in some of those bands that are just going to knock everybody's socks off. Kind of like Foreverland. Foreverland is one of those bands what was it?
They're now at
Is it a
5,000.
4,000 or a 5,000?
They're not at 5,000.
Yeah.
When we had them before, they were 3,200, but I think
And they've gone up.
that their demand has gone up. And
And
they're-
yes, I am. Part of their price is that they come with a sound system. The sound system alone costs $1,000. That's part of what makes them a great band to see. The quality of the music that you're hearing with your ears sounds fabulous. It doesn't sound like it's getting washed out, or you could hear it if you're right in front, but you can't hear it if you're over here. So some of the quality is sound, some of the quality is just the caliber of the musicianship in the band itself and their stage presence. There's a lot of factors that go into it. We would just like to be able to reach a little bit higher and pull in some things that really excite the community and really draws a crowd down there. There are some nights you go by and it's a smattering of people, and that you can tell when there's a band everybody loves, the band is packed.
Yes.
And it's not just dependent on weather. It is dependent on the quality of who's playing down there. And I'd like to be known as the commission who really brings in some great quality bands.
Yes.
Makes it, just really, a be there or else kind of a night that people just really are looking forward to all week.
Definitely. Just for some context, the band that was the most popular this last series.
The
how
last
much
2
did they
years,
cost?
I think.
How much do they cost?
That's not very much.
Interesting.
They're one of the lower ends,
Interesting,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That was a good find.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's also a genre that's not, a lot depends on genre, I think, too. It's not a genre that everybody knows about, so it probably doesn't quite cost as much as some of the others.
When you had your meeting with the community, did they indicate the types of music they wanted to hear?
Quality.
They just talked about quality?
Well, they want quality, but they also,
Did they want more variety?
they wanted more variety. I mean, they definitely want stuff that they can dance to, stuff that is upbeat and danceable, but they also didn't want to come out and every time they come out, it's basically like a wedding cover
Yes,
band that
yes.
is just doing the same groups of pop mix.
Right.
They would love to see a little more diversity out there in what's selected.
Good. Interesting. Okay. Keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you.
I'm excited for next year.
Me too.
All right. Anything else did we miss any of the subcommittees or anything in addition about subcommittees? We can set meetings now. Who needs to meet?
Concerts needs to meet.
Okay. Concerts. Do you guys want to meet in
January.
January?
Yes.
These are probably all January meetings, I would assume. Okay. You three want to figure out a good time to meet?
Kevin or Teresa, it makes no difference to me.
Just get my calendar up here. My computer's misbehaving.
We could start with a different one, too.
Yeah, start with a different one, come back to me.
Okay.
My
Who else needs to
calendar.
meet? I was going to say public art, but that's Kevin, too.
Public art,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to meet too.
Okay, so public art, let's just get a list going here. So public art and concerts in the park. Anyone else? Is that it?
In regards to meetings?
Yeah, meetings.
Programs.
subcommittee meeting-
Programs
Programs.
programs should meet again. I'm not sure about teens.
I think for teens, maybe we wait and let
I think,
Ricardo develop some,
right, I think there's not really anything we
Yeah.
can really work on until he starts building that yak. I
Yeah.
think we've decided that we really need yak at the table before we can really start building anything.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so programs, public art, and concerts in the park. Who's on programs? Teresa, Lyle, just you two? Program?
I think, was David on that one also? Yeah, David. And is David still?
Haven't,
Okay.
heard anything, so why don't you find a date that works for you and Lyle, and then we can let David know and find out if he wants to attend.
okay, so my computer is now functioning. And so we had concerts in the park. What's,
Makes a
Teresa,
difference.
Mondays towards, at the very end of the day tend to be good for you? Did you want to stick with
My
that?
Mondays are looking, well, the 9th, I have another well, it's a 7 o'clock meeting.
We meet on the 11th
We meet
for a
on,
regular meeting.
okay, we can do the 9th if we do, let's
That's
say if we do concerts, we're talking, maybe a 5:30, as long as it
Okay.
doesn't go too long.
January 9th,
Yes.
5:30.
okay. And arts,
Public arts, now, so public arts would be a little more complicated because we would want to invite
right.
these 4 people to it. But let's pick a date and see where that goes. And a time.
Okay.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be before, I mean, January is going to come pretty quick. It doesn't necessarily have to be before the next meeting.
It's true.
We could, in fact, given the whole holiday thing, maybe even the week following
The meeting?
the meeting. If we
Yeah.
could try to set something
Probably
up, and
right,
then if
yeah.
that doesn't fly, we could try to reset it at the next meeting.
Okay.
But
Well-
what,
I should be available unless I'm in jury duty. I get called in on the 12th, but let's just say that I don't. Continue doing that through the next week. It's Martin Luther King. It's a holiday on the 16th, so some people might want to do something on that day.
January 16th?
17th. How about Tuesday?
Tuesday?
What's the date
Tuesday the 17th.
and what time?
For you, Kevin, usually what works best?
End of the
I'm
day.
Flexible?
4:30, 5 o'clock.
4:30 or 5?
4:30?
Wanna do 4:30?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll write that down. 4:30 on January 17th for public art. And then, Kevin, do you want some assistance in contacting members of the community?
Yeah, maybe I
Wanna-
will
we can-
work up a general email. I think I have all those 4 people's email addresses, and send it and CC it to you,
Okay,
and then see what comes back. And if
Sounds
we have
good.
Are you going to give them the guidelines?
we would need to get them are the guidelines, can they be found online, or do we need to get them? We would definitely want to get them to about a week or so in advance.
Yeah, Stuart has the electronic copy, so I'm sure we could either post them online or email them to the attendees for the meeting.
Okay.
okay, that sounds
Great.
great. Okay, and then the last one is programs. Teresa and Lyle.
What days are good for you, Lyle?
So in the month of January, Wednesdays won't be good.
Okay,
And the week of the 9th won't be good.
all right.
But
I could do the 3rd or the 5th.
5th would work fine for me, yes.
Okay. And what time?
You pick a time.
5:30? Okay, excellent.
Very good, so I think that's it. Any other ones need to meet? Okay, so that is done. Let's move on to commissioner reports. Do we have any commissioner reports?
I just had one thing I'd like to bring up, and that is, I'm wondering if we might think about changing the March meeting.
Okay.
Uh,
Scheduled for the 8th?
Yeah, and the reason is because I would be out of town. And possibly for the next, both the 8th and the 15th. And that would typically be our reorg, is that the right term for it? Meeting.
That's true.
I mean, I could just miss a meeting, but if that's one where we are reassigning positions and subcommittee meetings and so on, that's possibly not a good one for me to miss, unless we wanted to do that a different meeting, in which case I could just skip that meeting.
So for changing anything like that, I'm going to need to look at the calendar for this room to see what's going on in that month and what we could possibly change it to. Or, as you said, maybe we can do it. Can we do it in like the February meeting? Or I don't know if that's.
Yeah, that's why I bring it up now in plenty
Okay.
of advanced time, rather than the February meeting. Can we move it the next month? So if you want to look into that, maybe we can discuss that at the next meeting.
I will do that.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, let's move on to D, staff and programs report.
Okay, I'm trying to stay awake. It's been a long day. So we have the beautiful new activity guide for winter and spring that just came out. Yet again, one of Noreen's beautiful.
The program,
Lovely.
the
Program.
quality of the program is
They're
so
beautiful.
improved, Noreen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So they just came out, so it's got everything coming up for the winter and the spring. Everything opened up on the 6th of December, and already, as you well know, the youth art in 15 minutes was full, all 3 sessions. The basketball for the co-ed basketball for the 4th and 5th and 2nd and 3rd filled up right away as well. But I think we have actually way more on the waiting list for the 4th and 5th, so there was a lot of people that wanted to do that.
That was basketball?
Basketball, the
Okay.
4th and 5th grade basketball.
Okay. Was that the team that some parents were asking if we could have a second team? Was it basketball?
Yeah, so if we have enough on the wait list to justify
Okay.
a second team, then we're going to do that.
Great.
And I
great.
believe we do at this point.
Okay, wow.
So, coming up, we have, is there something else? I'm sorry, I'm taking this back. There's new class programs coming up.
Splash Squad.
Oh, Splash Squad was something we wanted to bring up. It's a new program at the pool for, is it 6 months? 6 months to 5 years, and it's kind of introducing the children to the water, so it's kind of just a fun thing where they do music and play, and they get to, have toys and stuff in there. Not like the guppy where it's, lessons, it's just to introduce them into the water, and they get to be, I guess the parents are there as well.
Is this going to be on the weekend?
No, it's not.
Oh!
It could grow to the weekend
You
if there's
never
enough
know.
interest.
So that, and then also our swim team is back in session, and there's some signups already for that, but we want to promote that a little bit more. I think we had a pretty good showing for the fall session, so
great.
We should be good there. And we're also doing winter swim lessons, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes off. The fall did pretty good, if I
Good.
so, kind of cold out there, so whoever wants to brave that, we'll see who wants to get out there and do that.
Future polar bears.
Right. And then we have our winter break camp coming up, starting next week. It goes by the week. We're not doing the daily camps anymore. It's just going to be the full week you have to sign up for. Right now, for the first week, we have 33 signed up,
Wow.
which is average, I think. For the second week, we only have about 19 signed up right now, so it's a little bit low. We still have time left for that one, but I think that's a time where a lot of people, after Christmas, before New Year's, a lot of people might be going away, so there's not as many kids that I think come to the second session.
Did you have many requests for day single day or a few days?
Just a few. I know Steve's had a couple of calls, and I think I may have had one or two, but I think people are getting used to, because we used to do it that way. And I think it's just, for staff time and for all of that, it's better to do it like we do the summer camps where we know how many people we're going to have for the full week, and we don't have to think day to day. So I think they're getting used to that, but there are still some people that say, well, I only want to come on this day, and so we're just not doing it that way.
So for
the
planning and
time.
staffing purposes,
Yeah,
it worked better for it
Yeah.
to be weekly, okay.
yeah. So that's, I think, all I have, unless I missed anything, but Noreen's got something, so.
I just have a couple of events to put on your radar. The San Francisco Shakespeare Festival is coming on Saturday, January 22nd in Mission Blue.
Wonderful. January
They're
22nd.
presenting the 12th night.
Love that one.
And then Artist Evening of Sharing will take place on February 4th, and Live at Mission Blue will kick off on February 11th. Yay!
Yay.
And in advance of that, we will have the new downtown banners.
Oh, good.
Nice.
That's all I have.
Great, thank you very much. Some interesting, exciting things coming up. Wonderful. Okay, do we have any written communications? Apart from what was discussed at subcommittee level. Commission calendar. So next meeting, we will meet with our liaisons from the council. And we can speak, I guess, informally as a group about different accomplishments. And what else do we have next month coming up? What do we need to follow up on that we did today?
That's the only thing I put down.
I'll bring back the revised plaque policy.
Okay.
And then I can also try to have the program breakout by demographics
Oh, thank you.
present. And most likely, I will also be bringing the capital improvement projects list, because as staff, we're trying to get that ball rolling
Okay.
for the next coming fiscal year. So we want to make sure that we have some commission input for that
Great.
process.
Will that be a bit different because we're on a 2-year budget cycle now? Or is that the same thing as we did last year?
No, it's different. So last year, we focused on budget,
Right.
annual budget. This year, we're only focusing on capital improvement projects.
I see. Okay.
So we'll begin the meeting perhaps with the liaisons and then
Yeah,
they can
then we can
leave
set
when
them
we-
free.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I think that's it. Unless there's anything else, we set to adjourn the meeting at 9:05 PM. Thanks, everyone.
It was a long meeting
you.
tonight.
That's
We've
long.
covered a lot.